It's 6 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Finance Committee of February 26th. First on our agenda tonight is a request for transfer from the reserve fund by the Chief of Police. Robbie, you want to go ahead and explain what you got? I think everybody's got their copy of it.
So I'm requesting $5,619.52 be transferred to my operations budget. The reason for this transfer is we're part of the county-wide system to upgrade our computer system and go on to a system that allows all the departments to connect together. The benefit of this certainly is officer safety. Being on a system where we're all connected will allow the officers to immediately get information on individuals that they're dealing with right on the street and get actual particulars about offenses and issues that they've been involved in other towns. And an example of how that would be used is, we're finding that there's a lot of people moving into town that aren't from Northfield. Recently, our IGA was broken into, and it was broken into by three guys that weren't from Northfield. They moved from Greenfield within the last 6 or 8 months, and we didn't really know a lot about them. And it was hard to get information, to find out, and to catch up, to figure out who they were and what they had been involved in. So, having a system like this where officers can immediately, get this information can help, especially if they're dealing with somebody that may be dangerous. It also allows officers to get confidential information without it going over the airwaves of the radio system. They can have information delivered right in the cruiser, right to their tablet about, people they're on the lookout for, people who might be passing through town. A big benefit of this is it allows officers to be more visible and be out on the road and not in the station writing reports. If we get the system and they have access to the tablets and a keyboard that I'm asking for, they are actually going to be able to enter citations, write reports, and do accident reports all within the cruiser without having to come back to the station and perform those tasks. So it keeps the officer more visible. The system right now, the way the arrangements were made for it is we actually get, it's free for the first year. So the sooner we get on the system, the sooner we can take advantage of that time that's we're not going to be charged for. We currently have iPads in our cruisers. And unfortunately, it wasn't until just this past December did I find out that iPads aren't compatible with the system. We need something that's Windows-based. So that's the reason for the request for the new tablets. So with this new system coming online, they've allocated additional tech support for the towns that are coming on board now, and they're doing it in phases. We just happen to be in the first phase. So if we don't take this opportunity now and we have to wait until July, they may have moved on to another segment of Massachusetts, and the extra tech support that they've allocated, for building the system may not be as readily available. The other thing is training. This system obviously is going to be something the officers have to train into. So that training is available now, and again, if we wait until after July, it may not be as available.
Is the training free right at the moment?
Yes.
And then next year or the year after, is there a charge to use the system?
Yes, and it will hopefully be close to the same amount that I'm currently paying for the IMC system.
Debbie pointed out to me today that putting it under other purchases are subheading, the police operating expense, because you have two accounts.
Right.
So I'm going to just change that on here, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Debbie, how much is in our reserve fund right now?
41,
Got the figure there?
yeah, 41,412. Yep,
21,412.
no, 41.
41.
Okay, thank you.
Are you done?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so.
So are there questions?
Yes, right over here.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. You're saying that if you purchase it now, you get 1 year's free use. So all the towns that can't afford this transfer lose out on the year's free service? Or does a year's free service start when you actually are part of the purchase?
From what I was told, it's free for the first year once the town gets on board. And since the towns that are now being activated are on board and we're in that segment of communities, the clock is running now.
Okay, so there's no opportunity for the towns who don't transfer this now to get on board at a later date? They just lose the whole
Yeah, 40.
privileges?
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think it certainly would infringe on that amount of time that they have that they're not paying for the system.
Seems a little weird. So how many towns on this first?
I think the first wave, there's 5 towns in Franklin County, 5 or 6 towns that are rolling out in this first segment.
So there's no accommodation for those who can't do it now?
I don't know what arrangements were made for the other towns, you know.
Well, only because a part of this is based on the fact that if we do it now, you get a year's free service and the clock is begun. And if we wait till July, it will move forward. You don't know what towns are going to be where and all of that. So if we're basing the judgment on that and not knowing the alternatives, if you're using that as an argument, I think you need to know the alternatives if we don't get it. Because money is extremely tight. And we haven't had a lot of money come out of our reserve fund, but we still have a ways to go. And I'm wondering if it's at all possible to have a special within the annual and move money around at that point. And if we have the money, and because we're also looking at another $4,000 at the annual for radios, it all makes sense. And you went to the selectmen and the part-timers are going to get a raise per hour, and you already have them.
I don't think the select board has made that decision, have they?
No, they have not.
I thought they recommended it.
No, they did not.
They didn't vote and recommend it last week?
No, they did not.
I think they said they were taking it under advisement.
Okay, so they're going, okay. Thank you for that clarification,
You're
because I
welcome.
misunderstood. I appreciate that very much. Okay, because I was concerned because the question was asked, could you absorb that in this year's budget? And the answer was yes. And can you absorb it in the new budget without asking for more money? So I'm thinking, if we have this extra money for raises, how come we don't have it within your budget to do this? That was one of my questions.
Well, this is totally unexpected that this would be coming up during this year, right?
Right.
So
But wages are unexpected. If you're going to give a raise to wages and you can absorb that money, I'm wondering which is a priority.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, getting the radios out there, the equipment, computer equipment that you need right now, you've already seen the need for it when you just had this recent incident. I think it's a good investment that we should go for. But yeah, I know you're saying money's extremely tight. We don't know yet just how tight it is. We're going to hear from Debbie tonight about what the projections are. We've asked people to be very careful with their budgets, and they've done so about level services that we've wanted. But something like this I just think is important to have. Anybody else have any?
Just from my experience, I could tell you the communities in Hamden County are already changing over from laptops to the pads. Because again, this is being driven by communications needs between departments. It's just like the radio systems. This is something I know that many towns are not enthusiastic about because of its costs involved, but it's also being driven by one. Part of it is federal government with Homeland Security about the issues of interoperability between communities. And as you could see what's happened in Florida, the need for communications between surrounding departments to respond to a serious incident at the shooting in Florida at the high school. Multiple communities came to the aid of the Broward County Sheriffs because they couldn't handle it on their own.
Did they have this system in place down there, or did they do it by an old system?
Again, the situation is that you have, what I'm trying to say is that you have multiple communities coming to the aid of another one. And if we don't have the ability to communicate either by computers, or some of the stuff that has to be done by computer is more of the issue of confidentiality and not having it out in the open over the radio is an advantage. But also when we get eventually the new radio system, which will have the, I believe, better ability to be, should I say, not monitored as easily. I assume it's going to be more secure. That's advantageous for a police response. The ongoing upgrades have already started in Western Massachusetts, and I think that if you're going to have issue of communications, we have to be able to, talk our surrounding communities. Now, again, what the surrounding communities are going to do, we can't judge or anticipate, but I think that we need to move forward with this and work to get interoperability, because it's important. I mean, when you have maybe one officer here, if we have an incident here and you need assistance, we're going to have to call on our neighbors, and that's getting more and more important to communicate with them, the ability to do so. And I think this is a wise, I mean, it's not inexpensive, but I think it's more a necessity, because if we're not prepared and we fall on our face, who's going to be held accountable? It's going to be us, select board, because everybody's going to be asking questions. What did you do, and how did you, why wasn't it done?
Yeah.
As you can see, it's becoming more and more an issue in our country, is law enforcement security because of these incidents. And if we're not prepared, we'll better answer for the consequences.
Robbie, what's the actual cost? Because you're looking for $5,600. You have some in your account already, but what are the actual costs for the four?
Well, the
That
cost
is the actual cost of the five?
56.
Oh, okay. That's the
Yep.
actual cost. Okay.
is the cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were, for our laptops that we had, they were close to almost $4,000 a piece. We were spending money on for Panasonic Toughbooks. This is like far less expensive than purchasing a hardened laptop.
I was originally looking at the Toughbooks, similar to the system that the Guild Police Department had, and the estimate for that for 4 cruisers would have been $20,000. So I was able to get a better price with the brackets, the mounting hardware, a Bluetooth keyboard, and I'm hoping that it conserves on space in the cruiser and saves us some money.
Now, as I understand it, with this recent incident, you had help from, 2 other towns?
2 other towns assisted during the arrest and the search, and
Yeah.
along with the state police.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well,
Are any other? Sorry. Go ahead.
I would like to back up a little bit, because it sounds like we don't have anything in place now to communicate with any of our neighboring towns or the state police. And I don't think that is an appropriate opinion to put out there, because our police department has done wonderful jobs in the past of communicating and getting towns to respond quickly with them. We have a wonderful relationship, and over again we hear about how Northfield Police Department has worked with other towns and they've worked with us. So I think to put out there to the public that we're not communicating now is the wrong impression.
I'm not
because
saying
we're
that.
all
I'm not
working
saying that.
together.
I'm
That's
saying
what
that we
I-
need to be prepared for the future, because we're seeing that the radio systems are going to have to be changed. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to communicate in the future effectively, we have to replace the equipment we have presently. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that, in my mind, I appreciate your explanation, because that is saying that we need to prepare for the future. It doesn't mean it absolutely has to come down. And I would like to ask the possibility of if we could do this in May under a special town meeting, and he could spend the money the very next day.
If I may address, in the town of Sandusky where I was, we did put it on a special town meeting to put IMC for the police department, And what it did drive the costs up because of the training curve and the delay in implementation.
Okay.
What the chief is getting at is that if you do it now, there are costs in terms of implementation that are saved. Oh.
Okay.
I think there's an advantage to doing it now because of the training, because of the cost. And apparently they're doing this by segments of the state, and as they move on, we're left behind for a future date and so forth. So,
If you had this technology, would it have made it quicker to apprehend the people that or it would have made it a lot?
What I'm saying is when officers come in contact with people, especially people who live in other parts of the county, they will have any information that's out there that other departments have records of these
That we
people,
don't have the
other
ability
reports.
to get now.
Right. Well, we do, but it's
Takes you a
more,
little longer.
it's lengthy.
Well, you have to leave your vehicle and go into the town hall and get that information, whereas you can do it from your vehicle now.
Right. Now,
Or-
once we get the system right from behind the steering wheel, the officer will have access to other reports and other incidents that possible suspects have been dealt with by other departments. And they'll have that information before they even get out of the car.
That's becoming more and more important.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
3 years ago, in the department I worked for, we had the ability, up until within that last 2-3 years of my career, we had the ability to talk to Springfield, Chicopee, Agawam, West Springfield, where before we could only look at the database that was within house or the database that was in the state criminal records information, but we could not access surrounding communities, which we could do when we upgraded. So we could basically, if they had potential.
So this
suspects
data
or
goes
contacts,
into a bigger pot, so to speak, so you get more
correct.
information.
When is the deadline for you knowing whether you can be part of this current round or not?
Well, towns that are being rolled out in this segment are already moving to get the mobile operation that we're looking for.
But when do you have to let them know by that, yes, you're part of this group?
Well, the sooner the better.
But is there a deadline to give that information?
No. If we don't move forward now and we wait and I don't get the money until later, then we end up getting delayed. That's what it comes down
I'm
to.
wondering if it's a week, is it 2 weeks, or is it yesterday, or is it tomorrow? You have no deadline when you need to get back to them.
Well, the sooner the better is the best answer I can give.
So you have no deadline.
Well,
There's no deadline of when it's
it's just
done.
going to come up that, oh, okay, now you're too late, or something like that.
Right.
You don't do it. He's looking for $5,619, and we've got a little over $41,000 in the reserve fund. Now, the reserve fund isn't going to be impacted by the transfers that we come up with. There could be some, but the transfers that we can do at the end of the year are from existing accounts. It's not the type that's the reserve fund. Just keep that separate. There's a couple of different types of transfers here. So I'm in favor of doing it now. It'd be nice that we're on board with this technology that is going to be available, and rather than waiting, and I think we, can do it. We've got the money.
I'd like to move for a vote.
Yes. Well, one question I had is, Chief, do you know what surrounding towns either have or are they in the same boat as far as this first round?
I know Deerfield and Gill are actually on the mobile system now. Gill is using I think it's a tough book tablet, and that was the system that was much more expensive than what I'm proposing. Deerfield, I believe, has laptops in their cruisers.
And you don't know if any of the other surrounding towns are facing the same thing or in the same round of...
Yeah, I don't know where they are as far
Are you
as...
talking like Bernardston, Greenfield, that sort of thing?
Bernardston,
Okay. Do you know
Greenfield, I know, and Montague, they have some type of laptop in their cruisers. I'm not sure what exactly it is.
Well, the current system, if we don't know if our immediately surrounding towns are going to be able to do this, will the equipment, the new equipment interface with them so you can talk with them immediately? Or will you have to go to the back, the older system, to communicate with Warwick or Bernardston or somebody to get help?
No.
You're accessing records that exist.
Right.
But he's also communicating with other towns somehow to get them to come and help, to call.
Well, we have a radio system, so there's always direct communication. What I'm saying is this system will allow us to access records.
So basically,
Records.
Right. There will be a way for there to be communication car to car, where the dispatcher can send information directly to one cruiser,
Okay.
and then you won't have to use the radio, so people with scanners won't be able to hear.
So how will you call Warwick if it's something on Warwick Avenue? To talk to Warwick and say we need,
That's
you know.
not this.
that has nothing to do with that. What it
I'm
has-
just wanting to make sure that if everybody around us doesn't have the same system, we can still communicate
Well,
and get
this-
the information.
As far as the IMC system, it'll all be the same system.
Even if they don't have it now, they have to wait. You'll be able to still.
We'll
That's
trans.
affecting their
Right.
ability to access these records.
They're probably, and I don't know if Warwick, for instance, is in this same stage of this rollout, but at some point, I'm sure they will be, and it will be this system. It will be a Windows-based system, and that's. I believe every police department in Franklin County intends to get on this system.
What my understanding is, it's a database so that you're stopping somebody, you look at their plates, you look at the description, you can go over to your computer and say, this is the person as far as, oh, by the way, he's got a record. Is that kind of a system? Is that what it's?
It's more in depth than that.
Even more in depth.
Because the officer will actually be able to access other police departments' reports.
So it accesses information. That information basically isn't something that you would, if you needed to communicate to another town, you would still have to pick up some kind of other device to do that. So basically, this is to make sure that you have as much information on the person that you're stopped or is in front of you that you can possibly have to make it less dangerous for the officer to deal with.
Right.
Okay, you spoke about.
Yeah, I make a motion, I move a vote, to vote.
I'll second.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
okay, the motion is to transfer $5,619.52 to the police operation fund.
No,
Is that
operating expense.
operating expenses?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the transfer of $5,619.52 to the police operating expense. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? An abstention? All right.
Was there one abstention?
One abstention. No, not an abstention.
No, one opposed.
One opposed.
Okay, I'll just give this to Debbie right now, and she'll take care of the transfer, okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bob?
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Okay, usual that we go through your budget request for Board of Health. And we're looking at anything that's changed from last year and looking for an explanation on it, so, the first one here is, solid waste district. That means they've gone up on their rate, is that?
Yes, and what I have, there's a lot of changes since I submitted that, and some of those I'll explain.
Different amounts you're talking about?
Different amounts.
Oh,
That's an assessment, and that's what we pay, and that went up by, I think,
so the 11,669 is the firm figure?
yep.
Okay. All right, then,
Next, wages, transfer station employee wages,
yeah,
29,531.
okay,
I put a line in between that and wages overtime, which is 0, for the recycling coordinator position.
okay.
And I added 10 grand to fund that. I'm in that position, and Debbie said, and I'm not using anything like that, but this is looking a little bit to the future. And the rationale for the town, the Board of Health, designing that position would be because I was going to leave the Board of Health, and there's no one to do that position, and there should be.
Yeah.
And it would be a person that would be work for the Board of Health. The budget is the Board of Health's, but this is going to become pretty important. There's a lot of changes that I'll mention. So,
What is this, you've started in the position, I know.
yes, recycling coordinator. There are a lot of changes with the MRF in Springfield, and what we used to get from that was $40, $50 a ton for all the materials we paper, cardboard, and containers. That has been reduced. The contract, this goes back years. I was talking about this. Jan asked us to just sit back and hopefully she could amend that, but it hasn't been. I think it's $8 a ton now. It's going down every couple of years by $2. It's going to be 0 soon that we recover. The way we design things with paper and cardboard and solid waste was we have the 4 compactors so we can get as much weight in those as we could when we haul that material. We were unable to do that with containers. There was no way. We looked at compacting, we looked at a variety of things. So those go to Springfield at 2 tons or probably a little less. They average just under 2 tons at $200, $220 a haul. And that depends on fuel costs and a variety of things. But I made this point with Jan, and Willie was there the other day. We had a meeting that it's, and people thought I was crazy. I said it's expensive for us to get rid of containers, recyclables, as it is to containers, to get rid of trash, solid waste. And people say, what are you talking about? It's because of the weights that we're hauling air to Springfield North.
Yeah. So, well, can you go back just a minute to the wages here? The position was set up at a certain grade and step, right, Debbie? Mm-hmm. Now, is that at 10,000 annually now? I think you said not yet.
That would all depend on the hours. There's no annual rate for it at this point. So,
And
at the rate that it's being utilized now, no, it would not be 10,000.
But who knows what
But
would be needed in the future for a time.
And this goes back to a lot of things. It goes back to our reserve fund. And I was asking for some money this year for a building. I backed that off. I'm going to try and go to the state and the feds, USDA, and every place I can beg, borrow, or steal some money for a building to handle our containers.
Just in case some don't know, just explain a little bit about what this coordinator does. You schedule the others that are there for their
This
shifts.
person is in charge of the operation of the transfer station.
Yeah.
So there's 5 employees
And the
this
equipment.
6th person. And these people that are in the job are very good. They handle snow, they handle cutting the grass, trimming. There's an awful lot that's done. In addition, the highway department helps us greatly with moving things, with anything. Tom is a very great ally. And I just wanted to throw some kudos out there to the maintenance position in the town. And that was Jeremy, and now it's Sam that fills that position. Yeah. And I was going to I'd have to come and ask for more money if I had to bid out jobs. We get so much assistance from that position. I was at the library looking at the food pantry on Saturday, and there was a leak well, this was Friday and Saturday, I guess. And Tom was there Friday on his day off and back there Saturday. And Sam went in, and fixed plumbing, a leak in the basement. So I just want to give kudos to that position and that help. But yes, this recycling business it's going to cost us a lot if we don't do something about it. It's costing a lot. I've mentioned this in Vermont now. Windham County closed the MRF up there. They handle cardboard, they handle a few things. But to end up paying so much to get rid of valuable materials is a stupid thing. Jan is totally on board with this. The matter is to come up with a little bit of money for a building. We need to bale certain things like aluminum, white milk jugs. That HDPE, natural HDPE is worth in the range of $300 a ton now. So instead of spending $100 a ton to get rid of it, we would be able to bale it and hold it and turn it in for a lot of money and save on the shipping because we wouldn't have to haul, the materials. So that's where this is going. The MRF may change. Casella is a company that bought out Complete. That's who we use to haul our materials. They haul everything from the transfer station except metal. And they were bought by Casella, and we don't know how all that's going to play as yet. The places that Complete went are two landfills that are closing this year. And there's another two that Casella used, and those are going to be closing too. Stuff then could either go to Covanta or go to New York. Casella takes their materials to New York. So we don't know how that's going to play as yet. The tipping fees are going to go up by at least $9 or $10 a ton. They're 70, they're going up to 89, 90.
Yeah.
And I didn't change anything based on that. We can
Okay.
Work with
What,
them.
I noticed that you dropped the electricity by $1,000.
Yeah, then I brought it up again. And that was the thing. I went to 3,000, and I lowered it by 600. The last electric bill we got in the interim since I submitted this was $242 for a month, which means it'll be $3,000 a year. And that was, congratulations, you're using 20 or 25% less electricity than you were last year. But it's the rates that went up, so I had to go back up with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I lowered the
Now, the rest of them, any other numbers changed?
I lowered the telephone, and that's on there by 50. Hazardous waste collection, I went up by 400. That went up from 28, I guess, to 32.
That's what's on here. You haven't changed that from what you submitted then? Okay.
And the rest of them I haven't changed.
Okay. All right,
Compact for maintenance, is down 1,000.
pardon?
The compact maintenance?
That's up 1,000. That was something I
It
wanted.
was 7,000, you have 6,000.
It was 6,000 the previous year, the current year is 7, now you're back at 6.
Oh, all right, so it's 6,000.
So
6
that's down
Okay.
1,000.
on maintenance.
Well, this is what I wanted to question, because originally when I asked for that, the Board of Health asked for it, it was 6,000. So I didn't get the 7,000 that I saw in there this year.
Wow.
It went up to 7 this year.
Well,
Do you have your request form from last year? It would be.
it was just going to be 6,000 a year I understood.
Well, it must have been on your request form from last year at 7.
No?
Yeah.
That's what I
Then-
couldn't understand. I didn't know why I went to 7.
Well, I would have that downstairs, but
I
it's
bet-
not worth looking at.
No, well,
No,
If
6
you
I-
want 6.
I have
is
it,
fine.
didn't bring it, but, so it's 6 is what you're looking for this year.
Yes, and
Okay.
I want to circulate this. You wouldn't let me do it last time I was here. But I want to show, Bonnie, take that and look around. You can scroll a few of those pictures. That's the top of the compactor that we replaced. The compactor was an 2007 compactor. And the way we have it, we built a deck over it, and the deck communicates, and so things go down on the compactors, and it rusted out. And that portion, the whole thing was rusted badly. That portion was right where the electrical and the compressor for the RAM are and all. So we're going to spend that money this year on, and below this is transportation prior year encumbrances. And I had talked to the town administrator about that, and I wanted to put that in, it's 5290. That was what remained of the money that was there for replacing the compactor. And I want to see if the town would vote to give us that to work on this problem. We're going to have to raise
Wait a second.
That's a-
Okay, that's a
Right.
special article.
right.
Yeah,
So that's not part of the current
No,
year's operating budget. That's what's left over in a special article.
right.
And if you want to repurpose it to a different purpose, you need to submit for an article at town meeting to do that.
I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
did that.
okay.
But is that included in your full budget, that 52?
Well,
That's
no,
the
it's not,
5290.
it's not gonna be in the
That's not
operating
a budget.
budget.
No, but is it in there when you hit, were you counting it as your 181,000? Yeah.
I didn't add that.
You didn't add
That's
that.
okay.
So you got the,
It doesn't really matter what the bottom line is on these sheets per se, they don't
yeah.
tie into
And you've got the
anything.
exchange of
I saw
city
it.
tax really
Hold on, I
to
just
get
wanted
the
to-
3,000.
Just the 3,000.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So what I came to for a number, transfer station total was 139,437, which went up by $8,906 over last year's, I believe.
We can work it out, right? We can work those figures.
We don't really need that figure.
No, okay.
Okay,
All right, so,
I mentioned the
Board of Health. salary,
encumbrance.
so-
Transfer, Board of Health salaries, 2615. That changed.
Okay, so then we're getting into the Board of Health expense. right?
Yes, and I messed up, and I was kindly shown by your secretary, because Secretary Board of Health, I had added that twice, because it's actually below Secretary, Board of Health Secretary wages. So that first column is just not there.
So it should be 40, the 4746 is okay?
It
that's
shows
down
below,
800.
under Board of Health
Well,
expense.
it belongs down here. They used to
Yeah.
have it as a
Okay.
separate line in their budget,
Okay.
but then several years ago, they moved it
So that's
into
why
part of the regular budget.
Okay.
So that's,
Out, then. All right, so we've got it,
Board of Health inspection fees, that's what, it depends on building. If there's a lot of building, then that is where that happens. If there are perks done, if there are various things, inspections done by the Board of Health. And that was 400 last year. That could be reduced, I didn't. It depends how you feel. I mean, we could reduce that a little, but then if there's a building boom, which however likely that is, I don't know.
so,
I'm giving you options here, but I leave it alone.
all right, so back to the secretary's wages, you've dropped them, it's less than last year.
I dropped them, yeah, because we never use that in its
Okay,
entirety.
all right.
So I was trying to be a nice, polite man and cut money where I could.
Thank you, thank you. And then the advertising you dropped, you don't need that?
Which
Advertising was $100.
I didn't understand what some of these lines meant. Now we'll go with zero. I think we can, because we have meetings at seminar, we have postage. So the postage is
Yeah, okay,
that we can use. I kept the postage the same.
all right. And office supplies, you've dropped $50. It's okay.
Well, there's other purchase services. That was the same.
Yeah, then you could.
Yeah, I dropped that by 50. Uh-oh. I don't know if I
Okay.
included that.
The rest are the same. It looks like.
750, 400, 350.
So, okay, that takes care of that then. And the health agent is going to be the same, no, you went up a little bit on that.
That went up, and that's, again, an
a
assessment, so that went up
contract.
by 2%. So they both went up by 2.5%, 3%.
Yeah, okay. You still have the same people that are doing.
Well, Dave and Deb, Dave, who was our health agent for a long time,
Yeah,
had a problem and had a stroke, had a CVA, and he had to retire. So the district, which we are a member of, we hired Charlie Konecki and Claudia, and it's as our health agents. And Charlie Konecki is
yeah.
just connected and has been worked for the state and different things. He's
Years.
hell on wheels, so
Yeah.
he's
Okay.
tremendous
that's
help.
good then. And,
Animal inspector,
yeah, you went down.
I went down by 106, I guess, because I don't see many bills coming in from,
Okay,
well,
all right. So I guess that's it then. And then, well, then on your capital, this 100,000, you've just told us that you're gonna look to the state and federal government for something like
Yes.
that?
and I haven't done anything about getting bids or determining what the figure would actually be, because I just have to find out how much money I can get. I'd rather attempt to get money from elsewhere than just beg here for it.
Okay,
And the vertical balers, I've been looking at these things, and you can buy them pretty cheaply. We get 2 used ones in good shape for that kind of money.
okay,
And then the other thing was to retain that 5290
yeah. Well,
for
that,
lifting the.
you're taking
That's
care
an
of with the article. Okay. So you're talking, nothing for this year, you're talking next year anyway on this, the balers and
Yes.
so forth. So, all right, anybody have questions for him on any of this?
I have a question.
Okay,
You don't get it.
I have a question. Why is it that the secretary's salary has not been used to its entirety?
Well, it's not a salary, it's hourly.
it's hourly.
It's hourly, and it hasn't come up, it hasn't been needed. And that used to be Gail Zukowski, and Gail, well, she never used it in its entirety either. So we had it there, and there's another that we've talked about, something like 3,000 of state money to coordinate some with the septic and the files and things. Gail started to do that. She was putting things onto the computer that are just paper files. But then, she left before that was completed. So Katie works 12 other jobs, so there's no way she's going to be able to use those hours, and it's not necessary. She takes minutes, she comes in, she's in every Wednesday night, she does syringes and does the job then, really.
Okay,
And I have to feed her, that's part of my role. I have to feed her every Wednesday.
That's what I want to ask. To your recollection, was last year a typical year for the Board of Health in terms of the services provided by the secretary?
2871.
Typical year, sure.
So if you left it at 35 or
Yeah.
32 or something, you'd be fine.
What I cut.
Get 47, 46.
And you just took $800 off of the 52, or 54, I guess.
54.46 and dropped it to 47.46, which is $800 less.
Because if you're saying that last year, to your recollection, was a typical year, and your actual costs were $2,800, don't you think $3 might meet?
Where's the 28?
Well, 35, but a little, there's room if she,
32 or something.
That's a year ago.
That's the,
all right,
That's
so,
what the
that's
actual.
the actual for last
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
Would
I see
you-
what you're saying, okay.
Would you say that that would be more appropriate then?
sure, that's
Between
fine.
32 and
32?
35?
32?
32?
32. Is that,
Well, don't level it, because if we do give a
No.
cost of living, we're gonna
28,
run into
71
trouble
is
then.
yeah.
So,
So do I hear 32?
32. going once?
Gone
So-
once, gone twice.
And then I would like to advise here, your Board of Health advertising, you're going to zero. You're gonna have to put things in the paper at some point.
Sure.
You're gonna have to need flyers at some point. Do you think you can really cut it with not having anything in
All
there?
right, since we gave up so much, just pleasantly, let's go to 200.
No, let's go to 1.
125.
3 years.
going once, twice.
125.
1.
Well, it was
Well,
50.
actually, even if there's nothing
No, wait a
in
minute.
there,
Right, we can
you
spend
can
from
still,
postage.
you can
and from-
still use it.
Yes,
You can still
It's a
use
subheading.
it. It's a subheading. That's probably, he said he didn't know why it was there, because maybe one time years ago, it was used.
So as far as,
So it's used, even if it's not funded, because the vote is on one of these total lines, which would be Board of Health expense.
So we can leave it how it
So,
is.
Yeah.
so if you have a few ads that come
There's
in there, you
flexibility.
just spend less somewhere else.
And some of the advertising, basically I'm picking up because I put a brochure into every one of the mailings when we send out for the street listings, so everything is on that, as long as I get the right information.
Yeah.
So, and so everybody in town would get one of those anyway, so the only advertising would be stuff other and beyond, like your bulk waste days and your hazardous waste days as far as doing that.
Which you really don't put in the paper. I'm thinking more like legal notices.
Yeah, for the
or,
hearing or something.
There were some things with Charlie that we've just done that were expenses for the sheriff's department, but that could come from elsewhere too. That's not advertising.
That's not
So it's just-
advertising, no.
Yeah.
We have enough to satisfy what we.
Okay, as I understand,
Did
yeah,
it-
Bonnie.
As I remember in the past, and this is gonna be very different here, salary and wages are one item that cannot change.
Well, no, that's
But
not.
it's under expenses here, so
Well,
we get,
right, exactly. Because at
That's
one
part of
point,
it.
at one point, years ago, it was asked if that could be moved back into the expense account to allow that kind of flexibility. And so the one up above is like a historical place
Okay.
that it used to be.
So that's for
But-
this
but-
department only, otherwise it would.
Well, no, there's other departments that have the wages in with their expenses. There's several.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
several. And the smaller ones, basically the smaller ones, a lot of them have the wages in with the expenses. So no, that's not a frozen thing. It's part of the
okay,
total
so
expense.
the idea that wages and salaries are frozen only in that category is wrong. You can get it under your expense account and move everything around within there.
The
If
subheading.
it is a part of an expense account,
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
yes.
Okay, now, as I understand it, you've changed here from the 4746 listed for the wages down to 3,200, is that right? That's what you've come up with. Okay. All right, any further questions on
One
that?
last thing, sorry guys.
Yeah,
In the recycle coordinator position, as I sign all of your hours, and this is a new role, do you think that weekly you're going to start getting it to 8 hours a week?
Oh, yeah. One of the things, this talk about handling containers differently, we still, if we go with someone for paper and cardboard, and we can get a lot more than we're making, this went back years, the trouble is we're left with the containers, and that was 100 tons of containers. So if we juggled it, when they were paying us 40, 50, I could have gotten a lot more for paper and cardboard, leaving the MRF for that. But if you left the MRF, which is all where everything goes, you have to be out for everything. They wouldn't give us money, in example, for containers if we left for paper. So now it's coming down to a point where it's a wash. They're paying nothing and they're going to get to pay nothing. So this is going to start with, we collect all kinds of things. We collect in the metal. We're separating metals, non-ferrous metals. There's an awful lot of money in that. It goes to WTE now, the 30-yard open container. And I don't know who, but I've been down in it pulling metal out. There's copper, there's aluminum, there's things. There's a lot of value there. There's a lot of money in the wire. If you turn wire in, copper wire, you get pennies a pound. If you strip it, so I'm looking at buying a little stripping machine and having the employees, when there's nobody there, when they have downtime, to strip wire. The wire becomes much more valuable. And
So as the market for solid waste and disposal,
well, not solid waste, but
of this waste has changed, the composition of the work has changed, and you predict that your hours will go up.
I do.
Okay.
But don't just call it, that's a misnomer to call it waste. And I like to call the containers and rest, seriously, value is it's
But it's
not
going to
waste.
require more time from you to coordinate all the other ways we're going to be doing recycling. That's
Yes.
the bottom line. If you're doing
Yes.
2 hours a week now, you might be up to 8
Oh, certainly.
because of, okay.
So the
And what is
10,000
it per hour?
stays.
Cost wise, I mean,
The wage per
Wage,
hour?
I don't have no
22,
numbers.
something like that. Well, that was for me. And if I left and someone came else went into the job, that would be flexible.
Okay,
It depends on the, well, okay, the position is graded,
right.
and then the steps within it depend on the experience
So
of the
it's
person,
176 a week
what they bring to the job.
times.
So, okay, are we all set then on this?
I want to say one more thing about the Board of Health. So I have you here, so it's time I can speak. This Board of Health saves tremendous amount of money for the town. We get that from Dave and Deb, and they're in Florida now, and he's still in trouble with his CBA. But Deb said, what you guys do, we do all the septic stuff. That's at $1,500. We do inspections, perks, system inspections, install inspections, the whole thing. Other towns, we're in a district of 3, Shutesbury and Irving, and Irving, the Board of Health doesn't have any set hours. They meet if and when they need to. And so everything goes to the district, to the health district. We do an awful lot of it here, and this money, 11 or 12 grand, in Irving, I think it's way into the 20s, and in Shutesbury, it's 30-something thousand. And that's precisely because the Board of Health does a lot of this work,
Yes.
in board. So I really wanted to put that out. And again, with Highway helping us and that, we save tremendous amounts of money on repairs and on different things. To do this last thing, to handle our own containers, is something that I've been working on for as long as I've been here. It's an important last step, and I don't want to see anything go wrong. That's why I want some money from the damn state to help us out.
All right, no, they do a good job, thank you.
Well,
I want
do.
to talk to you just a few minutes, because we've got others waiting here. I want to revisit this idea of the assessor's budget, and it's about the online availability of the tax.
Do you want me to help explain
Sure.
a little bit?
That says
You'll be on camera,
Don't remind me.
when we talked about this before, we decided that they decided not to really request it at this time. And the point is, as I understand it, the cost for installing this, for getting this system has dropped, but it is $1,500.
Correct.
And then there would be a yearly charge hereafter. And this means that anybody could, instead of coming in and ask Deb to see the card of that particular property, they could go online and access it. So go ahead.
So, kind of backstepping a little bit, we just came into a situation where we had asked for $1,200 for part of the first light assessment with Irving.
Yes.
So we no longer need that because we actually have to spend it before fiscal 19 actually starts. So we're going to use money from other resources within our budget to pay for that. So that request is coming out.
That's within your expenses that you do.
No, that was an
That was
article.
an article.
Oh,
on the
okay.
capital sheet.
So you can't.
So
Yeah.
Is that something you're gonna repurpose and to try to use that? Is that what we're gonna do?
yeah, essentially, maybe.
So then you're only
It
gonna
would
be
take
asking for
an article
$300,
to
is
change
that what
the
we're asking?
vote, town meeting
No, we
vote.
need to ask for the 15.
No,
Still
this
15.
was
For
a
the-
proposed article that she's not gonna
One at a time.
propose.
Got it, okay.
One at a time, please.
Does that make sense on the articles that we'd asked for? We'd asked for 1,200 for
You're pulling
first
it
light.
out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now.
We're asking for more.
Okay, all right, so that isn't voted yet. That was something that you're not gonna ask for.
Correct.
Okay, how about this, if you went into this system for the 1,500 then?
And then, then we would just ask for that. And I guess we're gonna kind of leave the fate of that still up with you guys. It's something that, as you know, we're kind of back and forth about.
Yeah.
Ambivalent.
Well, okay,
So we
what
would
I
like-
thought would be that it would be appropriate under your expense account, because it's gonna be an annual charge if you do go for it. Okay?
So we're gonna change the request back to 78, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I don't yeah.
78? Oh, okay.
Yeah, under computer
Computer
support,
support?
under their expenses.
Yeah, I think it was
Oh,
63.
wait a minute.
Do you know what the fee is per year?
As far as I know, there was no startup. It was just a $1,500 annual cost. So they weren't going to charge us to get us going. So
So next year will be 1,500.
1,500, or it might even be less because this number's been dropping
Yes, right here, got it.
over the last several years. So
What we discussed too was how many times annually the clerk has to make copies of the property card and all that. And is it worthwhile? And now it was a lot more money before. It was over $3,000, 3,200 or something. And so it worked out to be 20 or more dollars per each request, 20, 25, whatever it was. So it's less money now. Everybody says, let's join the modern world, which I'm not for. But if it's completely ambivalent. If you want to spend the money, spend it.
Yeah.
It would make it easier for realtors primarily and people to look at their own information, I guess.
Yeah. When I talked to Beth here just recently about it, I said, if you put it in, it will be with that understanding that if we can come up with it, okay.
Right.
And the thing is, Beth can have a vacation. She has time off and so forth. So she's not there, and there's nobody else that can answer these requests for information. And this would make it accessible 24/7, I would think. So
Now, how many requests do you get a week or an average on this? Or it depends, like,
it all depends. I mean, some weeks I can get a couple, some weeks I can get 15. Sometimes it's for several cards at once. So, for the realtor on the other end who's working Sunday night at midnight, that needs a card for Monday morning.
yeah.
And I've gotten calls because I kind of get someone looking for her, and if it's when she's not there, like at 4 o'clock sometimes, then they have to wait until the next day as far as doing that. Or if it's on a Thursday I'm there, they have to wait till Monday as far as doing that. Where it would be handy. You probably it's more the convenience of the realtors and those people as far as doing it. You want to call on the weekend, or yourselves if you want, or even a citizen that wants to see what something would assess value and that sort of thing.
I think actually it's a good idea because again, we're looking generations are going to become more and more using the internet and accessing this information business-wise, realtors. I think and again, I think it's probably a distraction from what some of your normal duties are. I think it's actually the future is dictating it, and I think we should move towards
and the
it.
cost being less than what it was before.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
almost
I
double.
think that's
More
What
than
we used to
double.
say in the Army was PPP on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on my part. So
This is true.
it's just for the realtors.
Okay, we'll leave it in, and we haven't made any decisions on any budgets yet anyway. And then we'll take that and see what happens, okay? Thank you very much.
Was that to me? Am I dismissed?
You are dismissed.
Yes, you are.
You may
I'd like to
leave.
stay.
With thanks.
You're good to go.
We're gonna move out of that series.
My gum back to me.
Yeah, oh, okay, sure.
Thank you, guys.
So does that mean we're done with the assessors?
I'm sorry.
Does that mean we're done with the assessors also totally?
Yes.
Okay, 'cause this is just review.
Next one.
before-
Yeah, let's just review.
Yes.
E&M.
No, I'll sit over there.
Just one thing before you start, so everybody's on the same page here. Okay, there's one account that it's not Mark's job to put it in, I guess. I talked to Debbie about it today. We're paying on the ambulance.
Correct.
And we paid the first payment this year. And
Bond report.
so the next year, we should put it in, and it does not come out of the enterprise fund. And so,
Well, it's a transfer from the general fund to the enterprise fund. So it ends up being recognized as an expense of the enterprise fund, but it's not part of his regular operations, and it will be in the article,
yeah,
as it
Okay.
was last year.
yeah.
I'd say the article last year had it as its own separate line item, but it's part of the EMS budget.
Right.
I was gonna mention if you didn't mention it, so.
No, I was well aware of that.
I didn't think
Yeah.
I didn't think you guys forgot about it by any means.
Well, it is something that we have to watch in the future, that we don't
overlook
ever
it.
overlook it, because it's debt service, it has to be paid and it has to be budgeted for, but
Yeah.
it's not from your
The way it was
revenue.
in the warrant last year was, there was in the article, some to operate the Emergency Medical Services Enterprise Fund, and it lists the maturing, like you said, the maturing debt is in there. And that's the total money needed. And then down below, it says that amount to be raised as follows: department receipts and then tax levy. So that's how we get in that part. So that's the way it was done, and that's the way it will be done this year then. So just so everybody knows, that's what's being done. Okay.
Just a quick question. How long was the bond for the billing? So many
This
years?
is
I
five.
should have, I should
we
have asked
talked about
Barb,
that
but
today.
yeah, 5.
5 years.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So this would be year 2 of the 5.
Okay. And as usual, we just want to go through with you, Mark, on
Okay.
some of the changes. Just overall, I noticed reductions, and it's decreased decreased anticipated revenue.
Correct.
Business dropping off, people healthier? Or?
Oh yeah, everybody's getting so much healthier. Yeah, that's what it is. No, I mean, last year we had a reduction in overall call volume, just overall in particular. I hate to say it, but some of our frequent flyers are no longer with us, as well as just overall call volume was down slightly. Year over year from last year, looks like it was 17 transports is what we actually came up short compared to prior year's time frame.
Okay.
That 17, if you at about $800 a whack, it's pretty substantial. So as a result of that, we do an analysis, or I do an analysis to sort of look at last year, determine what we anticipate the revenue is going to be next year, to get my crystal ball out and try to figure out what we're going to collect.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it comes up shorter than it's been in any of the other years that we've been doing this.
Okay.
So as a result, we've taken actions within the budget to
Sure.
against those anticipated revenue. Do I truly believe that this is the trend? No. I think I firmly believe this is an anomaly that occurred in that 1 year. So as you see my reductions in my budget this year, I would hope that next year when I tell you that we make $200,000, that it won't be as scrutinized when I say I want to increase this line, this line, this line as
And the population in Northfield isn't changing much. I mean, it's aging.
It's definitely aging. Unfortunately, the aging of the population also does affect our revenue slightly, because as their insurance changes, their recovery changes, what we can actually collect changes. So somebody who has a Blue Cross Blue Shield of the world, I can charge them let me see what's the last rate here. $2,234, and they'll pay $2,234.
Yeah.
That same patient, if they're a Medicare patient or a Medicaid patient, I'm only going to get $400 of it. That's it. And that's the max I can bill. Unfortunately, because we're not always 100% paramedic all the time, because I have a job. Oh, by the way, this is Tom Valley, by the way.
Hi.
Tom Valley is our new deputy chief in the EMS for us. He's also paramedic. When we can't put a paramedic on a truck and we're able to still transport at the BLS level, and we have to call in somebody to jump on our truck to provide ALS, if I'm only collecting $400 and I have to pay $300 of it to somebody else, unfortunately, it just about covers the fuel, and that's about it.
But we have to do it.
But we have to do it.
Yeah.
So, obviously, our goal is always to put our own paramedic on that truck 100% of the time.
Sure. Now, you're having a paramedic at the station, 5 days a week, one shift, is that it?
So within the budget, we have money for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
The reality of it is that I can't get I have a full-time job, Tom has a full-time job, other people who are paramedics have full-time jobs, and to get them to want to come to the town of Northfield for any of these days, we don't always get 100% compliance for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we do the best we can.
How does that affect our licensing, though?
So it does not affect our license. We are 100% a paramedic service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We
But
have.
I guess I'm not saying it right. In order to get that, we had to have some service, some availability of somebody on duty.
So we have an agreement with the town of Orange
Okay.
that says that they will. Well, let me step back one step. If you are providing a BLS service, you are not obligated to provide ALS. But when you become an ALS service, you are now obligated to provide ALS service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay.
We can either do that either A, by our own people, or B, by an agreement with somebody else. We have the agreement with somebody else. If I pick an ambulance service, I won't name any names. If I call it an ambulance service and they choose not to send an ALS truck, even if they have one available, the regulation does not require them to send that truck. If they don't want to send it, they don't have to send it.
Yeah. Okay.
But in order for me to be compliant with our licensing, I have to have an agreement with an ALS provider, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that says that they will, if they have a truck available, they will send it. And by that agreement that we have with Orange, allows us to be that paramedic service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, now Orange, it has a full-time service under the fire department?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I've spent many a days and nights over there in the town of Orange.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So unfortunately, as a result of the reduction in the anticipated revenue, you see where I've had to make some cuts within our budget in order to make that happen. The first one being that I'm assuming that we're only going to be able to provide a 1% COLA next year. If you guys make a decision to do something other than the 1%, I got to find it somewhere else in the budget.
Okay.
But right now, I put 1% into this budget for now. The one line item that I've added a additional money for a second captain under the maintenance title, maintenance captain.
Yeah.
We split that duty into vehicle maintenance as well as building maintenance. It's just got to be so much for one person on a part-time basis that we decided to split it into two positions and focus people on just those key things that have to happen. So in order to have that, I have to add some additional money for the maintenance position.
Now, the lease is apparently going up.
So right now it goes up every year. I think this would be the third year of the 3-year lease. So at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be up for renegotiation again. I think if you go back and you look at my capital request, I've got $300,000 out there. Again, if we don't know what we're going to do with the public safety building, we may need to think about purchasing that property that we're currently at right now.
That's that 300,000. What was that? Is that the figure that you purchased that property?
Just put in
That-
Casey.
That's the number that the property owner at one time threw out. Reality is, I think the number is a whole lot less than that number, but I can't negotiate that on behalf of the town. So
Okay.
I think,
I just wondering where the figure.
Bernie, I think you're going to be having a meeting of that committee.
They're trying to arrange a meeting, and we're just having a little difficulty getting everybody
Everybody in the room
together
at the same time.
in the room at the same time. But we're hoping, shoot for
Over next week.
this week, yeah. That's what we're-
Okay, and something else. Oh, yeah, this is the COG radio maintenance. All three of you
So-
departments went up a little on that.
So I got the bill, the anticipated bill in the mail the other day, giving us the heads up. It is like $3,988, so the 4,000 is right on target. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of paying this sort of money for a system that's basically not functioning at this point. It's a terrible system.
Supposed to be
Terrible.
upgrading or changing it completely, aren't they?
My concern is that they've continued to take money year after year for upgrades and maintenance, and I don't see any of it happening.
Ooh, ouch.
As you know, I've been very vocal about this radio system. It's an absolutely terrible system. And you'll also notice down further, we had money in the line item for replacing radios and pagers, which was a capital item that came out from a couple years ago conversation. I've taken the money out because I just don't know where we're going with this radio system. There's talk of going to 800. There's talk of going to the Massachusetts State Police 800 system. The FirstNet. We'd have no idea what we're doing. So I don't.
Is this the same system that the police are? So they're
Right,
asking
yes, the
for
police
four,
are-
yeah.
they're looking
So if
at
you
upgrading.
don't know, theoretically, nobody knows?
No, there has been zero. There's a lot of speculation, but there's been no decisions. Are we going to spend millions of dollars to upgrade the current system? Are we going to jump on the state police system? There's this thing called FirstNet that just came out. Are we going to jump on that system?
Or is the COG going to be able to get any funds from any other source?
Right. We just have no idea at this point. So.
Do you have any interoperability with the fire and police department through your current radios?
So yeah, I mean, we do work on the same frequencies.
Yeah.
And the police department has their own dedicated channel, but we have the ability to swap over and talk to them on their channels if we need to. But again, the radio, I mean, Tom can tell you, he lives in Irving. It's basically non-functioning in Irving, and I got places in town here that doesn't work at all. So.
Well, that's the reason we were too, because earlier we were talking with the police chief about communication issues, and that was something that we were dealing with my previous agency was interoperability between EMS, fire, and police, direct communications, reliable communications.
If this system was reliable and functioning, we would have that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this system is not working.
Okay. So you're anticipating probably reasonable replacement in the next couple of years, probably, right?
Yes, unfortunately, if we do go to the 800 system they're talking about, which is now a P25 system and so on and so forth, the radios alone are $4,000 to $5,000 a piece, and then I need 25 of them. I mean, you can do the math from there. I mean,
Plus your vehicle radios.
plus pagers, plus it's going to get real expensive real quick.
Okay. Are there other questions?
When do we begin to, that's a huge expense. When do we start figuring out whether we put money away for that or not? Because we have
I think that
fire roll on it.
I want to
EMS
see
on it.
something more definitive at this point.
I understand that, but even if we're talking, and I understand that fully, Lois, but I think it's important to keep that in mind when we're looking at if there's any money, are we going to be putting some into savings for this? Are we looking at 100,000? Are we looking at 10 to do all three departments? I mean,
Well,
it's something we have to keep in the back of our
I think
mind
it's
for
a
stabilization.
humongous amount, as
Yeah.
Mark is saying, and I think they're going to be looking to state and federal funds for some of this.
Correct.
And I don't
But
see
the
how
problem-
small towns can come up with it.
The problem is I don't think any of us know
No.
what the answer is. I think it takes pushing the cog at this point to say, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Make a decision.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
One question I have also is, I know we're still in the midst of the issue of the building, public safety building. If that doesn't go through, obviously you're gonna be meeting to negotiate a renewal of the lease
Make
for
a
your
note
current.
that could change.
Is that what you prefer to do, renew the lease, or is that your goal is to purchase the building?
So my preferred, well, it depends on what my alternatives are, let's put it
Yeah.
that way. If the alternative for us to move back into a 3/4 of a bay at the fire station is not my alternative. That would be purchase the building and be done with it.
Okay.
However, I think there are other options that we, as a community, should be thinking about bigger than, obviously if we have a public safety building that is designed for all of us, and that would work too. But, I think it's sort of that building works right now. It's functional right now, but if we happen to change our model of how we operate, that building then becomes obsolete because there will be additional things we'll have to add to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Obviously have to upgrade and,
Well-
flesh out the building with other, improvements to it.
Correct.
So,
I believe to a meeting, it's going to turn out that they've clear the deed, and they know how they're gonna go about clearing
Again,
it.
that's the first I've heard.
First I've heard of it too.
Let the cat out of the bag on us.
That was the holdup for now.
Yeah, that was the whole for now.
see about
That's the first holdup for now.
Yes, yes. But as I
the final
understand it,
bill, I think, is going
it's
to be
gonna
the
take a
next
special
holdup.
article to change that. I don't know if you've heard anything about it yet.
I'd like to discuss at that meeting first with that chair.
Oh, yeah. They are-
We haven't had a chance
That's why
to meet
I
yet.
think Skip's getting a meeting together.
No,
so-
I understand that. I'm just saying, the other thing too is, I've always also believed that, we prefer the new public safety building, but I get it. In case it doesn't go, I think we have to have plan A and plan B as that'd be the smart thing to do. In case that doesn't go through, we just can't live with the situation as
Right.
it is. Then we have to look for alternatives.
Plan B is definitely, I think, on the capital request plan for 2020, which is the money to buy that building. I mean, that's the plan B.
That's what, yeah.
No, just changing the deed isn't gonna tell you what
No,
you can
no,
do
yeah.
on the land and
Yeah.
how far you can go back and all that.
That's just-
Tony, go ahead.
At one time, a while back, there was some talk about expanding the area to service, maybe pulling in any other town or towns.
Well,
Has
what-
anything happened with that?
I'm glad you brought that up. So obviously the reduction in revenue, is a result of loss of call volume.
Yeah.
The only way that we can really solidify going forward is the expansion of the enterprise beyond the town of Northfield. We have 100% monopoly on the call volume of the town of Northfield, and we are already collecting that and spending that as part of what we're doing here. Really, truly, the only way to expand the enterprise is to look at other communities. As a result of seeing what occurred this year, I have reached out to other communities. Other communities actually have reached out to me as well to discuss potentially us servicing them as our primary ambulance provider. Initial conversations with them has been very positive. I've actually had our billing company do some investigation as to what they believe our revenue projection would be increased by if we look at those other communities. One community in particular would be, what we say, it was right around $127,000 would be our increase in our revenue just for one of the communities that we're talking to. They have the same concerns that I, as well as everybody else, has. And those concerns are: A, what is the status of their current primary ambulance provider? It appears as if it's not going to last very much longer. I've been saying that for years, but I think over the course of years, you guys have seen trends that sort of go along with what I've said. The second piece that they have for concerns with regard to Northfield EMS is staffing.
Yeah.
I have the same concerns. I'm nervous as well. When I'm in Orange and the tone goes off, I get all these electronic devices that tell me that we have a call in Northfield.
Sure.
I know there's nothing I can do about it. I'm working. Problem is that we are trying to do this with volunteers, and we do the best we can. And with our call line that we have, we do a pretty decent job of it. But to expand the revenue, we really need to solidify staffing. In order to solidify staffing would be hiring employees, full-time employees. I know it's always a sore subject when I bring it up about hiring full-time employees, but really it does make the most sense in order to solidify that. And I have these conversations with these people, and I say, look, you put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. I need your call volume in order to pay for the staffing, but I can't pay for the staffing unless I have your call volume. So we have to come together and have a discussion and a commitment from both sides that this is truly what we want to do. I think the town would truly benefit from us merging, I don't say merging, but with working within other communities. Because it solidifies that staffing for us. We have the ability to put a paramedic out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are in a very good position compared to other departments around us because we have 2 ambulances. Yeah. The upgrade to the second ambulance can easily be put to the paramedic level for about a $2,000 investment. That's all we have left that we needed, which is basically medications. We have all the expensive stuff that's already there, it's ready to go. So in order to do something on a multi-town thing, we'd have to have 2 vehicles, which we already have, at the paramedic level, which we can easily make happen. But we need the staffing. We're already paying for 2 vehicles. We're already paying to house 2 vehicles. We just need the staffing. And that increase in call volume would pay for that staffing.
Now, as far as Franklin County is concerned, full-time is Greenfield, Montague, or Turners, and Orange. Those are the only 3 that are full-time, right?
Fire departments.
Yeah.
Fire department. So you have Medcare Ambulance out of Greenfield, who's a private entity that
Yes.
they're full-time. But Greenfield Fire Department runs a BLS ambulance. They do not have advanced level care.
Okay.
Turners Falls has a BLS ambulance. They do not provide advanced
Not
level
a-
care.
Okay.
Orange is the only other paramedic service that is run by a fire department in Franklin County. That's it. If
Now,
you look, yep,
South County has ALS,
correct.
but it's part-time, I mean volunteer like we are.
No,
No?
no,
Full-time?
they have full-time people.
Okay.
They run their first ambulance full-time with full-time people.
Yeah.
Their second and third ambulances, they rely on volunteers to come back
I
and fill
see.
the second and third ambulances,
Okay.
which we would sort of be in that same situation.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can tell you is that my conversations with those other communities, by doing the similar things that we do in Northfield, which is, we incentivize our people to go and become EMTs, and we'll pay for that class and encourage them, and that gives them an opportunity to go on more calls and do more things, gives them an opportunity. It has increased their enthusiasm where they would never see those sort of benefits by partnering with somebody else or the people that they are currently
Yeah.
partnered with. So I think there's a lot of additional benefits that come along with us looking to consolidate. I don't say consolidate; it's a bad word too. Regionalize. Ugh, the R word. Regionalize with another community because the benefits are definitely there. And again, Northfield gets 2 paramedic ambulances, staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by a paramedic who's available to run their call. God forbid you have a heart attack in town of Northfield. We are here to actually protect you and help you.
Huh.
That's,
Yeah.
yes ma'am.
This conversation's going on probably for 6, 7, 8 years about whatever you want to call it, working with other towns. And sometimes left foot doesn't know what the right foot's doing. Thoughts are discussed and made and thoughts are going forward and almost to an agreement, then it all falls apart. What has changed in this whole atmosphere? Have boards changed? What's changed to make this time seem more viable than other times? And do you really think that it's changed enough?
History is what has now occurred, because in the last 5 or 6 years, people have now had an opportunity to step back and, I hate to say, but sort of listen to what I've had to say for the last 5 or 6 years. And when they initially weren't believing it, now they've had 5 or 6 years to actually look at the true reality of what's going on in EMS in Franklin County, and they're going, "Yeah, we're concerned." And I've been saying, "Well, I have a solution. I have a solution."
Okay.
And the fact that we have the 2 ambulances now,
Yeah.
capable of doing
Yeah.
it certainly has made a difference.
A year and a half ago, when I was trying to pitch this idea with the 2003 with 180,000 miles on it and so on and so forth, people are like, "Yeah, right." Now when I show up with my 2017 with the auto loading system and so on and so forth, they're like, "Wow, you guys really are a paramedic service." And yeah, we do everything everybody else does. We actually have better equipment in the town of Northfield than the people who are doing it full time in Greenfield.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a Lucas, they do not. We have a loading system, they do not. We have a lot of stuff that we've invested a lot of money and effort into this service, and people are taking notice.
How long will your second ambulance, the oldest ambulance service, theoretically in good condition?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, we talked about that
3 years.
when we authorized
Because there's
the
no money
So-
going in your reserve fund.
Yeah. So the 2007 van ambulance that we bought, again, under the assumption that we were a first response service at the time, we weren't transporting it. It met the need at the time. It's still a good truck. It's low mileage, but it is now 10 years old. It's starting to rust. It's starting to have more maintenance issues with it. And it's not really. It can function as a paramedic level truck. I mean, again, it's not about the truck, it's about the services you provide that make you a paramedic service. Is it the most comfortable truck in the world? No, because it's very tight quarters, you can't get around the patient, so on and so forth. But my goal is to have that truck replaced in 10 years. In 10 years
from now.
In 10 years, replace that truck. However, obviously, if we change our way of operation, and we think about needing a second paramedic truck, that truck may not be the right truck to do that on a go-forward basis.
However, you're talking about bringing other communities in, right?
Correct.
And then that would be probably paid for by the other communities, hopefully, right?
Or they'd get more use anyway.
Yeah.
It would have more
You
use.
replace it.
So like right now, I could make that second truck a paramedic truck today, but there's no sense in it because we're not getting the volume out of it that we need. If we start to have the volume, I can easily make that truck a paramedic truck. It's available as a paramedic, but it's not the ideal truck. Let's put it that way to work out of. I have been approached by another community who has 2 trucks. One is a 2007, one's a 2003. It's an ALS level truck. I say level, but it's an ALS box truck. It's bigger box. They would be willing to donate both of those trucks to the community. We could go through the process of selling A1, the current band truck, using that money to refurbish this truck and get maybe another 10 years out of it. But again, in 10 years, we're looking to replace that truck.
The second, you said 2, one would be more like for parts and that sort of thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, this is a conversation I have yet to have at a level that just happened like last week that this offer was made
And
to
what
me.
would the community giving us that want in return?
I was told 0.
Right.
My thought was even if we take it and sell it for scrap, it's
Better than nothing.
we'll strip the coating off the wires and sell the copper. It's all good.
Sit there on the floor waiting for the call.
All the metal, let's scrap the metal.
One question I want to ask you, has there been any, from the college that's coming into the town, St. Thomas Aquinas, have they approached any of our public safeties about their demands that they may make upon the town, what requests they're looking for, what are they looking for services?
Who?
Not good, huh?
Who?
It says it right
Especially
there.
since they're looking this
To be
fall.
tax exempt.
Yeah, no,
They
tax
are.
exempt.
They are
They already are tax
exempt.
exempt, but they're looking to, once they get their certification or accreditation, looking at the fall of this coming year, but you'd think that they would be looking to discuss issues of, what if we have an emergency, fire, police, ambulance services, because they're probably gonna have need for these.
Treat the same as any other business or entity in town, that's what they expect.
Yeah.
And how can you be
Otherwise,
anything else?
I wouldn't say it's the same because they're tax exempt. So if they
But if
need,
you call the police and you're a tax exempt church and you say we're having a robbery, our police aren't gonna deny going just because
No,
they're
no,
tax
no,
exempt.
no, but if
You're
you're
gonna
talking-
respond.
No, what I'm saying
talking
is,
about businesses are
Yeah.
paying
I'm
tax.
talking to
Yeah.
everybody.
but I'm just saying is that if they're coming into this community and wanna get their up and running, you'd think that'd be one of these things that they would want to talk to us.
Yeah, but you probably are, if they haven't got their accreditation yet, they aren't gonna start that process until.
Yeah, I know they're supposed to be hearing
That's-
very
that's-
shortly.
Yeah, next
That's,
Something tells me they don't get accreditation. We ain't gonna see them anyway. So
yeah, probably not.
I think the assessors and the select board are talking about
Some kind of pilot.
whether there's a
Yeah.
pilot payment or something.
I was just wondering if they even
Yeah.
approached you, that's why I'm asking.
no. So to answer your question, I don't even know who they are. To be honest with you. So
Okay, well, that answers that.
But wouldn't it be more appropriate for them to do that through the select board
Yes.
rather than through the individual department?
Exactly.
yes, but from a preparation perspective, they should be
That's
talking
what
to
I was
us to
thinking, is
say
preparation.
what do you guys have available for resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I have one more question for you, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
If your numbers change and you have more calls than you have budgeted for here, any of that extra money, are you gonna have a top priority to put it in your reserve fund since that's absolutely zero?
So
Or,
currently in our reserve fund, there's what's the word I'm looking for? Certified by DOR.
Yeah, surplus
There's
revenue.
80,332. There's
Yes,
80,000
that's
sitting
right.
there currently today. So the reality of how I run my budget is I have what is budgeted with you guys, the conversations, the line items. But I truly run the department. I keep a detailed spreadsheet. I tie back to Deb on a monthly basis. I'm spending only what I know I've collected. I'm never.
Right.
I never put myself in that situation, and I always attempt to at the end of the year put at least $10,000 into that excess revenue. It may not be on here as budgeted for,
Okay.
but my goal is to always make that happen. So I went back and I've looked at the last 5 years of what we put into the excess revenue fund every year. Fiscal 2013 was $12,280. Fiscal 14 was $5,441. Fiscal year 15 was $18,037. Fiscal year 16 was $43,896. Fiscal 17 was $19,865. Obviously, we don't have 18 yet, but right now I'm on goal for meeting that at least $10,000.
But I think it's important for people to understand that just because that's zero doesn't mean your goal is
Correct. Our goal is not zero. Definitely is not zero. Because I heard the taxpayers loud and clear was that the next ambulance they're not paying for. So with that being said, this is the goal. The budget that I call the normal course of business budget. If something occurs where we need to start thinking about moving forward with going outside the current enterprise, I may be looking to tap into some of that excess revenue to get us up and running for that portion of.
Yeah.
So it may be like a last minute request at a town meeting or something that we make that request if something happens sooner rather than later.
Special town meeting, right? That would have to be.
Wherever it is I can make it happen. Let's put it that way.
Whenever, yeah. Yes, we're.
Could you define a little bit what you mean by something occurring to increase call volume?
Which would be an expansion of the enterprise beyond the borders of the town of Northfield.
So if one of the neighboring towns that you've been speaking to, if they decide to vote somehow to include us.
Yeah.
And so at that point, we're talking about potentially hiring full-time a little bit more.
We may need to, yes.
Which means the town health insurance costs, which is in addition to that. So it's something for us to think
This
about.
is something that the select board has to
think
about. It's a big change. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, these numbers that I rattled off about what we put the excess revenue every year, that excess revenue volume is what has really changed the course of how we've operated. Meaning that these first numbers that I gave you was back when we were just a BLS truck and we were not. All that money that should have been going to the excess revenue was being spent on ALS intercepts.
Yeah.
Then we started doing our own ALS intercepts, and now all of a sudden I've got a budget of $43,000 extra dollars. Okay, so now what we've done is we've taken that money to solidify the staffing portion of it. Now that's why that number is down. Obviously, the next step is to keep increasing the size of the enterprise.
Deb, could you refresh my memory? If something happens here and they need money before next year, how do they go get it? Can they access this reserve fund on their own? Do we approve? Does it have to go to town meeting, or
basically
everything. Can we give them from transfer from reserve funds?
it wouldn't be typical to transfer it from the general fund, reserve fund into their enterprise fund, but I think perhaps you could if it was so desired. I think you could, but it would be a transfer, it would be a subsidy from the general fund.
Right.
In this case here, what he has is surplus revenue, which is really the fund balance.
Right.
Unappropriated, it's almost the equivalent of the free cash. Here he doesn't have anything built into the budget, so what he has budgeted for expenses is got to be the bottom line. If he wanted to go into his surplus revenue, it would take a town meeting vote.
Only town meeting. But
Right.
you think we might be able to transfer from the general fund, reserve fund, if something came up and we needed to move quickly?
Possibly. I'd have to double check on that to be
No.
sure.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
Finance the reserve fund is not for wages, and this sounds like a wage.
But if it's to bring the second one up, you said he's already accept $2,000 to add medications and something to bring it up. So if it
Wait,
went
we're
to
talking
that
about the
level,
ambulance?
here.
I thought
We're talking
it
about-
was wages.
Yeah, but-
a little bit of
But
both.
I think
everything.
that there's guidelines that the reserve fund shouldn't be used to increase existing persons' pay, but to actually expand,
Add a position?
add a position. I don't think that that's
I have to look at
against
my
the
office.
rules.
I'll bet you a brownie.
Really?
Well, all right.
We're talking hypotheticals here, so I don't really want to bet.
But we can look into that down the road.
This is a big change he's talking about, and this has been mentioned
Oh, yeah.
over the
I think
years. and
probably it would end up being a town meeting appropriation, I think, really,
I
in
think
reality.
The whole concept would be to do.
I mean, I want to commend you because we've seen a lot of stuff happening where budgets do not reflect changes, and he's taken a real big step to make sure that his budget goes down with the calls, and that's something to be proud of. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's good management, because,
Yeah,
yeah, if you weren't keeping your expenses in line with your revenue, then you'd be,
so that's
Yeah.
the enterprise fund that he's,
right, he's
Yeah.
doing a good job managing
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
okay. Any other
I think
questions?
all our departments should go to enterprise. Wouldn't that be nice?
No,
I don't think the
no.
schools will ever agree on
God, we didn't budget a little bit.
that. Yeah, I agree.
The others don't
Get a
have the
bill for
source
$1
of
million
income.
for my kid, what?
You can teach them how.
Well, then how am I gonna get revenue for my fund?
That's right, you're out.
Yeah,
Gotta be creative, Jess.
$10 a question.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Building inspector.
He's my neighbor. He didn't pay me to ask that
I'm the
question.
building inspector now.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, Willie, just want to bring up that you gave us the building inspector's budget, which is what, saying? No, he went up on,
$300 increase.
yeah, and I guess that's some of the, the
Administration.
stuff he needs in the office and stuff like that. Okay, what I want to say, Willie, is I think you might want to bring up to the select board whether it's time to consider again whether we want to maintain our own building inspector or go with a card for the inspection services. I think the reason for not going over the years was because of any possibility that there could be increased building on the campus, which would generate revenue through building permits. And I don't know now whether we can determine that, whether that trend is not going to happen.
I'm right there
Yeah.
with you, and building inspector and I actually sat down and we discussed the possible separation of commercial permitting from residential, given the losses that we're having to the tax revenue. If the school is going to be doing improvements, then that's something that we can raise, one of the few things that we can raise, because they're not exempt from the permitting process.
Okay, so it's just something to think, maybe not this year, maybe another year or something, but it's should be reviewed periodically, I think, to see.
I
Okay.
agree. And the dog officer, I don't know
Yes, that's on my list too.
if you guys finally got it, and it's,
Is there no way to review this before this year? We don't have enough info, or what the cost would cost to join that underneath?
I can get an estimate from them.
That's a lot. I know it wouldn't be all gone, but still.
Okay, what about the dog officer?
It's level funded from
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah,
There's
okay,
no changes.
all right. Okay, next I just want to, you had turned in budget for the select board accounts, and then last meeting, you gave us a revision to that, and a lot of justification for some of the changes and so forth. And some of those reflect, as I said, there were changes, and some of them, that you've got some fixed figures on since the earlier time. So, but I want to go over some of the things that changed from the earlier one that, I think we wanted to revisit about the cell phones. Now, under the Selectmen's expense account, one item is Selectmen's telephones, and that's up to the actual last year, or the year before this, was $1,776, and you're requesting 25 this year. Whose phones go under that, under the select board?
My
You
phone.
have one, yeah?
Actually, I think yours is on the town administrator.
Oh, under his expense,
The select board, that's just the lines, the hard lines in the town hall.
oh, it's not cell phones at all, then?
No,
All right,
So you're the only one who has a cell phone under,
well, wait a minute.
It's under my expenses.
right?
It's not,
Yours is yours.
apparently there are no cell phones in this line I'm talking about.
Correct.
Okay. But they're somewhere else then, I guess. Oh yeah, okay, down here, town administrator telephone at the bottom of the page. Now, that's a cell phone, his cell phone?
oh, it's on the top of the page on mine.
612.
Well,
Yes,
whatever,
yes,
the printing.
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, all right. And- yeah, okay.
So-
Okay, you went up on your mileage. From the first time you submitted it, right? And the reason,
A mileage,
$40 up, so that's up to $540.
right, $45 a month times 12.
Yeah? Okay.
You've already gone over it for this year?
Yep, that has to do with when I attended a meeting and I submitted to Deb the first time. She saw that it was for mile and she just took it out of there. So that's supposed to go to town administrator other.
Okay.
So this will be adjusted. The 621?
I'd have to look. I have to look back at the transaction.
So I guess we want to know, why is it going up $40?
$45 a month times 12.
Yes, but why?
That's
Because
a,
that's my contract.
that's your contract.
Okay, contract. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it is. You have to be very clear. Lois asked why. You just keep going. 45 times 12 is 540, but it's contract based. That's all.
Okay, computer supplies and services, that's gone up about $8,740. Okay, you've said in your explanation here that there were, in 2016, there were only 14 users, now we have 19 users.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and who they are?
Well, we have emails that didn't exist then that now exist. We have computer stations themselves that exist now that didn't exist then. And all of these have costs and they've gone up.
Okay, I'm trying to think kind of specifically in terms of 14, there were 14 users. What are the 5 that came on? I'm thinking positions and you're thinking,
Oh no, not positions. It's not people.
No.
It's like users. In order to use a computer, you have to create a user profile.
okay, and maybe these are a different thing than something they already had, and then it might be
Right.
2 onto 1 person particularly.
Well, not necessarily to one person, but the position may have been there, but not the user profile.
So we have 19 people under the select board's overall budget.
I guess he's
That
not
access-
saying it's not nine, it's not,
We've
it's
got
not
X number of people that are using 19.
yeah, whatever, 19
Accounts,
somethings.
19 individual accounts.
Counts.
Yeah.
19.
But they're not all under the select board, this is townwide.
Townwide,
Yeah.
could be
Townwide,
DPW,
19.
fire,
Only-
was another,
In town hall?
No, not
all
only
the
in
time?
town hall.
So this is the whole town?
Yep.
All right, so we have a computer over at the highway garage, I believe. EMS has one.
Yep.
Highway, EMS, library?
The library is not counted.
They have their own.
Yeah, so it's not the whole town. They have their own. Where do we get 19?
Yeah, that
seems like
seems
a
like
lot.
yeah.
It actually doesn't seem like enough.
Well,
You've got
Board.
assessors, you've got town clerk, you've got town tax, you've got Debbie, you've got, I'd say you, yeah?
Board of Health has a
Board of
computer.
Health. So it's every department in the town.
But what 5 new ones have gone on? Can you tell?
Are the
I would have
police?
to go and get the list.
Is it the police? Because they've had a few.
Police
Yeah,
have, yes.
A couple more, yeah.
Police have. There's a sergeant's email, there's the chief's email.
They didn't have those before?
I would have been here since
So
July.
basically, it's who has an email
Probably
that's runs through the
not.
town. So you've got
Probably not.
Sam has an email.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
they won't. Yeah.
So there's, it's.
and I think a lot of the boards never had their town email either.
And I'm
They
slowing
had-
that down because we have a fire chief that doesn't have a town email.
Right.
We have several other positions that don't have town emails, which can arguably made a case for. And I've slowed that down given the part-time status. But if I wanted to, I could encourage to go forward with that, and I haven't because of the history of the town.
but you're gonna normally see an increase anyway in email accounts because it's every community, that's become a primary form of communication for governmental business.
And the most frustrating part about it, guys, is that I learned that there's a difference for the storage of emails and the archiving of emails. 2 separate charges, which twist my mind around, which I just think should be one thing, but they're not.
So theoretically, your email could be 2 of these.
My email's only one of those.
But you store.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, you know what I mean?
Two costs,
Right.
right.
Yeah, apparently that's,
Oh, God.
Yep, that's the same feeling.
Then
I
you have
had.
doesn't your assistant or secretary also have one?
Yes.
Yeah, so it adds
Yeah.
up
Talk
that
about
Yeah.
putting all these computers into one whole.
They're in a server.
It's
That's
different.
just-
Yeah, it's a different. What you're talking about is computers, servers, and emails. As far as that, so it's,
We were going to put computers and all this computer technology stuff into one independent thing, I thought, to keep track
Server?
of how many computers we were and.
two different things you're talking about. You're talking about the materials, and you're talking about.
Correct. But I thought we talked about putting that in one space so we could manage it better and know exactly who's got what, where, how, when, what it changes, what the costs are and the numbers, but it doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
What
before
does that
sorry to interrupt, but before, in your original master agreement, if you will, with the IT service, they were not giving you a report on what needs to be updated and who's using that. In the new agreement, that is part of what will come by, and that's what I want to disseminate to all of us, so that we're all on the same page, so that those questions you have that burn you so much, that we all know exactly.
Okay.
And that's something that was not included in the original agreement, which is not part of the agreement.
Be nice to know that with phones too, cell phones. They're floating everywhere.
They're not floating everywhere.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't, I wouldn't classify it that way.
We got a lot more phones now. But that's, okay, we'll go on.
some time ago, some years ago, I used to try to get all costs associated with one department in there, no matter what they were. like phone and that sort of thing. But those days are gone because some of these things don't lend themselves to that anymore. We just come up with one. Makes it a lot easier on the bookkeeping too, I think, to have it all under one.
Well, you can go from one extreme to another. I mean, there's certain costs that, when I first started here, they used to pass around the phone bill, and every 10-cent call you were supposed to mark down if your department
If it was
made
yours,
it.
yeah.
And then when we paid the bill, we charged 25 cents to this department and 2 cents to that department. It was
Yeah,
pointless.
yeah. Okay,
One figure that maybe I sent you the FERCog assessment. They finally gave us the hard copy, the hard figure.
there's something Debbie brought to me in the mail here. Probably same thing we've got.
Yep. So it's 28687 as
What about
opposed
the last page?
FERCog assessment. Yep.
Yeah.
26,867. That's just regional services, then
No, 2.8.
680, yeah. Okay, but that adds, then you add in the 1820 and you get the 28,687.
That's the total.
Yes, that's the assessment.
Read it one more time,
28687.
28,687 is the total assessment for Northfield from the COG. And they give us a list of the budget. So you're saying, Willie, is that the figure that's in here or is needing to be
Nope.
updated?
The one that you have would have been 27983, so different than that.
Yeah, this just came recently since that, so.
The actual
pencil
figure is
it in.
28687.
Yeah,
28687.
Yep.
So that's about $700.
704 to be exact.
That would be on the next to the last page.
oh, okay.
Maybe it's the last, it'd be
And
the
you're not-
next page on it. No.
Back this way?
Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah. You flip them and you get and stuff like that.
Oh, you've got them
28.
kind of in a funny order anyway.
Yeah. That's the way it.
Well, you've got the thing
No,
from
this
the
is the one
COG.
Willie handed out last week. Okay, so in other words, I'll mark that.
Yeah, you've got the thing from the COG, you can find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
28,687. Okay, now back to where I was here. The next one on the pages I was talking about was. Now, the various departments have put in, the 3 departments that are involved, the radios have put that in separately, which is the way we always do it. Okay. Okay, the, below where I left off there with the other, is the building maintenance expense, and I know you've done it differently than what we've had it. And when we made our final recommendations, we'll consider that. Let's see. I don't know if there's anything else that changed between your first one and your second one, really.
It's changed 3 more times because as these things keep coming in, I keep updating it.
Okay.
So I'm hoping as a kind of cutoff, tomorrow's the last day for the article submissions.
Right.
So now I'm going to piece everything together.
Tomorrow is, okay.
The 27th.
27.
Yeah.
So
Okay. The
So I will send you the most updated one with all the bells and whistles.
Okay, yeah, I know I had mine. Street lights is under the Hampshire group. Is this the final figure now of 15.5, or is that gonna change?
That is not the final figure. I'm waiting for that group.
Wow, they're late then on it, aren't they? Okay. And then the fog is... Okay, now, I think you told us before, though, that the Veterans District is a firm figure
Yes,
from them. Okay, county retirement,
firm.
firm,
Too firm for my liking.
and if we pay in advance, like we have the last year or two, we paid.
We have.
When
and
they've
that-
offered the discount, yeah.
And that is the discounted rate.
Yeah. Okay. I have questions on the health insurance. You attached something, Willie, that gave some different options. And so I want to know what we build in. We always build in a surplus in there because somebody could,
surplus, a contingency amount
somebody could change
for
their,
family tiers and such.
yeah, or we could have new hires or whatever, or bring some, yeah. So how much of this represents the cushion?
I know I looked at that too, to see how much leeway we had and whether it would accommodate extra people.
Yeah,
It probably is enough to accommodate perhaps 2 families, but I don't seem to have my notes on that with it. Basically, if you take the current population and times it out by the new rate, but you can't really stay at that because there's positions now that aren't filled, there's people that could change, they could add dependents, so there's all kinds of things that could happen. I felt that there's enough of a cushion there so that we could probably accommodate changes that could quite likely happen, but it's not a ridiculous amount of cushion.
okay, in other words, not too much fat in there for this.
I wouldn't want to lower it.
Okay, I'm looking at this.
I'll try not to get
Same
married
as
and have a
last
lot
year.
of kids.
Same as last year.
Me too.
All right.
Your wife's insurance.
Right,
that's all.
261, that's what you're talking about, the total insurance?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's level funded. So if there are positions vacant right now, when they were filled, those dollars are in here.
But where
But the
have,
family
where have we got a
name-
vacancy in our positions? It says in there something I read about. We're down.
Well, we have a vacancy for the police sergeant right off the top. That's
Yeah.
one. Well, now we have the sewer operator. That's
But
another.
those dollars are already in here from last year.
Right,
So
right.
we're
But
not
what
looking
I'm,
at
but
new
what I,
positions, we're looking at family need changes.
right, but when I was taking to look at the budget for next year, I'm taking the snapshot in time as to 1 month's bill, what the rate is, then timesing that out by 12 months,
Yeah.
and then putting back, oh yeah, we need at least this, and room for changes.
But you're right, Bonnie. The sergeant's position was filled under last year's budget.
Out of last year's
That's what I mean,
budget.
so we're not really looking at putting on new people.
No.
It's just
Replacing.
changing
No,
order.
no, not new
Right.
people that weren't budgeted for last year. No,
Right.
no.
That's why we can level it.
Yeah, when we talk about vacancies. Okay, and I guess the workers' comp figure is firm.
Yep.
Okay, as unemployment, we've been told that's our figure.
Well, they don't tell us what our figure is. Basically, that's a level funded figure, and it's quite probably good. But they change the rates on calendar year basis,
Okay,
and it's a percentage of payroll.
yeah.
We're not. and it's also based on your experience ratings, so,
Yeah. So
you're-
far, we're okay on that. I mean, we haven't had any events that would cause this to make a big change.
Perhaps.
Is this just change now?
Well, no, it's the same, we're budgeting the level funded budget that we've budgeted at one point in time. It may have been that we needed 12,000. The last couple of years, no. But next January, maybe. But it's not just based on, the rate isn't just based on our experience, it's also based on the aggregate pool
Oh.
as well
Right.
as the individual.
But you're saying that halfway through our year, the state is
Fiscal
changing.
versus calendar year.
Right, so
So we don't know.
we may be having to move money in here or having it depends which way it goes, because when you change in the middle of the year, 1 year is really a year and a half's worth of
Yeah,
stuff.
I think that
So
figure
that's-
that's a high figure that we may have experienced that level once, but we're probably not going back there.
I'm
But
talking about the changes January 1st versus the.
So in other words, we've got enough in there to cover us.
Oh, yeah.
oh yes, yes.
That's it. Okay, on Medicare, I think you had a note in there because that changes calendar year too, and so you don't know what the rate might be.
No,
not
that's probably been the same for a long time.
As to what our costs are for it then.
Well, it's a percentage of payroll.
Okay,
It's,
all right.
it's the employer match of the 0.0145%.
Oh, now you're
Yeah.
showing off.
Yeah.
Well, 1%.
Okay,
1.45% is of the payroll, but as payroll goes up, as COLA goes up, yeah.
okay. No change in other insurance then?
No.
Okay. And the level on the plumbing inspection, okay. Elementary school, that's level. A question, the building utilization committee, they come in with articles, have they come in with
Yes.
articles for the elementary school?
Yes.
Okay, I have sent to the superintendent asking for any articles for Pioneer. And they usually, if there's something they want to do over there.
You want them to give us articles?
Well, I want it now rather than later.
Yeah.
There are always 2 or 3 projects or something that they want money for. Not huge, but,
Well, there's one huge article that they may ask for that we've been hearing about.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
the lunch deficit.
That has to be by tomorrow, right, for the selectmen?
Well, they're
We've
kind of in a
we've never
special.
held the school to that.
But they don't have their budget in yet.
Yeah.
Looking for a delay even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's talk that they're going to ask the towns to ante up for the budget deficit, and our share would be well over $100,000. And I have asked, and Bernardston has asked, that be spread over 3 years if we
Yep.
have to come up with it. And I expect we're gonna have to, I don't see any.
Just a quick question on that one, though. Is there any requirement by the State Department of Education that we have to pay that off in a year or have to pay it off as soon as possible?
The amortization of the debt is not prescribed by Chapter 70s. Nope.
It's been going
So
on
3 years.
Oh, I know it's been going on for years. I didn't know if the state was starting to say, hey, wait a minute, you're not gonna be carrying this forever, you're gonna have to pay it off.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the other thing is too, is if there's no requirement for us to pay it off in 1 year, as you said, maybe look at it a 3 or 5 year, payment, to that account,
What
to
I'm
get rid of the deficit.
What I'm concerned about is they've just got a little experience now, 2 or 3 months or something since school started, and they're in the black, but barely. And so there's some talk that there's no way they can keep from having a deficit and so just rebuild into their budget for every year. Wait and see. I don't know. So,
I hate to speculate.
okay. And any other changes on these are all level, the rest of it. Town hall maintenance, elevator, sewer use, town reports, town clock, gas inspections, no changes there.
Nope. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of the town clock?
I'm sorry.
The town clock, how did that get on here?
Well, because we own the clock and it's housed over there in the Unitarian Church, which is First Parish and 100, and maybe more than that. I mean, it was the meeting house and town meetings were held there and so forth. So that's why it's the town clock, and we give this as a token toward the electricity that
And it's been carried for years, because every time I look through one of these yearly, it's in there.
Yeah.
It's in there.
We can't come donate it to them?
Donate? No.
Here, I'd like to donate a liability
No, you
to
can't.
you.
The clock.
Oh, donate the clock.
No, you can- yeah.
No,
Oh,
that's history.
Yeah.
Okay, computer supplies and services has gone up $8,740.
didn't we just talk about that one?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
All right, yeah, he brought that up, okay. These pages here. Yeah, we did. We went through, I've got my pages upside down here.
I have my life upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be this one here. And the other insurance was the last one, right? Okay, anybody have any questions of Willie on this? Or what I call this?
However, you will get back to us on the ones that you don't
Yep.
Yeah,
have answers for. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
okay. I'm going to hold off on Dan and Debbie until next time. Debbie is going to give us an estimate of what we have to work with for next year, which is 2.5 plus new growth.
Yeah. All things being equal, last year you had $1 million worth of special articles. This year the omnibus, and this of course doesn't include any requested increase from Pioneer. There's still some estimates and things that need to be firmed in the omnibus. It's up only 49,000. So that's a takeaway. 2.5 is close to 197,000. New growth,
197,000 for 2.5?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. New growth, I had originally put in 100,000 as a new growth guess, wild guess. We have information from Western Mass that their new growth could be like 584,000. So there's a big difference in that, and that's been happening over the past several years where they've had substantial new growth down there. I'm a little bit leery because there was one year where they had sent a letter and we were going, oh joy, joy, and there was debate whether to build it in the model or not, and I says, oh yes, we want to have everything in there that we know. And then they sent another letter or a message that said, we have made a mistake and we need to revise that figure. So I'm not quite sure how we want to treat that in the model.
Okay.
But the bottom line being that with the omnibus being somewhat similar at this point, any huge increases to that, of course, would take away from what you have. You could have articles around the same total as you had last year and still be in the levy limit for certain.
What was your new gross again?
197. Oh, no, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's two and a half.
Oh, that's 2.5.
She wasn't too.
Yeah, 584.
I thought it was 5, yeah.
So you
Thank
could
you.
say anywhere between 100 and 600 is what we can kind of think of. But really what you want to do, I think, in this point in time is last year the goal was to be well below the levy limit to manage the tax rate, to make the tax rate manageable. So if you're
That's what we're up against,
Right.
you're getting at. You know, if
Yes.
this is gonna talk, these figures she's giving us, so we're estimating toward what our levy limit would be. And yet, if we spend up to the levy limit, the tax rate is gonna go like that. And so that's
Right.
the decision you're getting
So
toward.
if you have close to 1 million in new articles last year, take away from that any big increases, and leave it, huh? Right. Take away from that any big increases that are in the omnibus. Then you're about at the same place that you were last year. You can put on your your 2.5, and come out with close to the same tax rate.
Yeah.
So we could.
You know,
So we're.
and then if you have substantial new growth, I mean, if you put in the 2.5 and the 100,000 and keep your articles and your omnibus totals like they were, you can be at basically the same tax rate and substantially under the levy limit. If you've got new growth that we haven't factored in here, that could make the tax rate even less. So I think we need to sort of come to maybe get all the articles together and then hopefully try to see where we feel comfortable in placing that valuation that they've sent us, and keep in mind, well, if it didn't come all the way through at that, or you can just build the model with a very conservative new growth estimate and then go back to a special town meeting, but it would have to be before the tax rate was set to appropriate that extra new growth.
Yeah.
So there's different approaches to take, but basically it's not all.
As bad as you thought it was going to be.
No, it's not. It's not. There's not a disaster. There's been substantial new growth over the years, which has really changed the picture from what it was years back. I can remember when there was like a struggle to cover the omnibus. There's not that kind of thing now. And when you're talking about whether you're going to go to an override, well, you're already well under the maximum levy last year. If you keep things kind of on an even keel to what you did last year, then you're still going to be substantially under the levy.
Yeah. So I don't think we're looking at an override.
No.
Not unless it's school comes
No,
in.
dependent upon the schools.
Well,
Well,
I mean that could, they'd have to ask for a whole lot
yeah.
more than what they have, and we'd have. It all depends on the big ticket items, what the articles come in at too. But I don't see any override coming.
Can you tell us briefly about the $1 million in the special articles? About what ones came from stabilization, or if we put money in? I don't remember all the items from last year.
There was a list of like 18 articles.
Right.
Were they all from the levy limit, under the levy limit, or did we take money
Well,
from
did we
other
take them
places?
from other places?
Funding was.
A lot of it was free cash. There wasn't anything coming from stabilization at all last year. Nothing went out of stabilization. Money was put in, and that was
Well, we put in less than what we wanted to,
within
right.
those within those special articles was money going into stabilization.
But we didn't put in, like they're saying, as much as we really had.
Well, I
said
can
we
just
would.
run through the
That would
list
be great.
from last year's.
But
It was like-
she's talking about the sources. You don't want to read the whole list of what the articles were.
Well,
That's not
the
what she's
sources, no, I thought you were wondering what
sources.
the articles were that added up.
Just
No.
the source, no,
She's
not the
just
million,
talking
no,
about
I
the
just wondered
source.
if
No.
it came, most of it came under the levy limit, or they came under transfer of funds from somewhere?
Well, we weren't looking at any
Most of
overrides.
most of them were raise and appropriate
Okay.
or free cash, one or the other. And yeah, that's the other thing that we have, free cash. If we were to use the free cash at basically the same rate as last year, that's part of.
What do we have in free cash?
I knew that was going to be
As she's looking.
530,000 and change.
What I want to, the way I want to proceed is, after the special articles, it closes. Now, the select board should be meeting next week, I believe. And I don't know how soon they will be going over those to make their prioritizing decisions of those. We need to, as we can see tonight, there are still a few figures that need to be, we're waiting for information. Nobody's fault here, just that. So we need to finalize the omnibus. We need to get the special articles. And then we'll have to sit down and make, I think we'll probably go through and think, okay, which ones would we like to cover if we could, and then we match up the funds with what we have that way. And so, based on that, I would like to, well, I want to meet next week. I've said, right along we've said, hold every Monday night in March, and I'm hoping not to have to do that. Next Monday, though, we will meet. Skip will be coming in with his budget. I saw him yesterday. Well, he sent it in at the end of last week, but I saw him yesterday at the fireman's breakfast and talked to him about it. And he's willing to come in, and then I'll see what else we need to talk about at that time. I don't know how fast how much time the select board really, they need time to study these articles and so forth, and they have acknowledged the fact that they might prioritize for the articles that come under their jurisdiction, but they also recognize the fact that we might have articles from others that are not, and they would consider that. So the next meeting after next week is up in the air right now. So let's finish up.
Can I add one thing that I had
Sure.
on my notes on another page?
Yep.
Typically when you're finalizing the omnibus, you always ask what effect the COLA would have.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've got enough information in there now to calculate that. 1% would be about 12,000, and 2.5 would be about 30,000.
Oh, thank you. That's good to have.
Is there a deadline when they're supposed to tell you what their new growth would be, or can they just change it throughout the year?
The final figure for that. Do you have the answer to that one?
Beth?
No.
Okay, there's no deadline for them.
Well, when they,
Well, it just follows in a certain procedures.
when the tax rate goes to be set, their value has to be set in stone. We're talking about what
Yeah, values are set.
the value of the new growth. When would we say that it's too late to change that number? When the values are certified by DOR, or is there somewhere in between that it's too late to change?
I think you have to have everything all set before you submit everything to DOR.
Yeah, but I mean, if they were to notify us that they made a mistake like they did that other year about the new growth,
Oh.
when would it be too
There's
late?
not, well, I mean, they're supposed to have everything by March 1st. That's when you're supposed to turn it in, but if they've discovered a mistake, I don't know. I mean, that's the first one I've ever seen where they've come back and said, we've messed up. So I don't know if they could let us know in June and say,
Yeah.
oh, we've messed up. I don't know how.
What,
But as far as us turning it in, I don't.
I think that,
Oh,
To
right.
change and then
I
just
see,
say, oh,
right.
no, somebody made a mistake. I don't.
Right, well, when the tax bills went out, then they'd have to go for an abatement if it was after the tax rate was set, but up until
But
that.
if it's new,
we don't
Yeah.
usually look to change that figure though. We've been
no.
traditionally very conservative on that. We've never been burned that we estimated too high and didn't come in at those figures.
Right, right. It just makes, it would make the amount that you're below the levy limit a lot more than what you thought.
Yeah.
If you kept it low.
Yeah.
It would make the tax rate a lot less than what you thought too.
Yeah. I've got a note here from Rich Fitzgerald. He's chair of the planning board. And you remember a while back after I saw him somewhere, he said level funding. When they tell me level funding, I always go back to last year's, because if there was any particular spike for a particular reason, I don't want to just perpetuate that by saying level funding. And there wasn't any spike last year. So he's turned in the form now, and he says, I apologize for this being submitted so late. Please feel free to call with any questions, or I'll also be happy to come in to discuss.
But it doesn't appear to be that it's level funded. It looks like it's a decrease.
I didn't even look at his figures. I just got it tonight. Yeah. It's decreased.
Yeah.
It is. You're right. About $1,000. We'll take it. It's good.
Well, last year's working on the bylaw, so that probably took a lot more.
But that was a separate article for the money for that.
Yeah, but it may be the wages line has gone down, and it may be.
Well, that might be.
It may be.
This is in black and white, we're gonna go that.
Well,
It may be
I'll scan
similar.
this and send it out to you.
It's probably similar to what you just went through with the.
I didn't
Board of
realize it.
Secretary.
Changed.
And they didn't submit any article requests either.
I'm sorry?
They didn't request any
No,
articles.
no. I'll send that out then. Okay, how about reports on committees where you're representing the finance committee? We know that,
We're trying to make arrangements to have possibly a meeting for next week of the public safety building.
Yeah.
Again, I don't, as it looks like you have more information than I have, there was nothing yet that I could tell you that was solid about what the situation is. And like I said, I'll be there next week. Unfortunately, probably be after our next week's finance committee.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll have to report it on the next,
Okay.
I'll try at least advise you what transpired, okay?
yeah, all I can, what I said earlier was that they've resolved that,
Yeah, we're
D,
waiting to hear for
and
that.
you know what,
Yeah.
the wording of is such, it's gonna be changed with an article.
Yeah.
So, okay. Tony,
Yeah,
CPA,
well, we gave out some money.
oh, they made the decision.
We made a decision, and we
Allocation.
notified people about this. Everybody knows this, so there's not disclosing anything here, that we did authorize up to, well, it's $950. I don't think it's gonna be that much for a plaque over here on the first fire station of the town, which is now the Boy Scout house. And they're gonna have some kind of a ceremony along with that,
Yeah.
just when that comes to be. We also funded, partially funded, money to bury the wires that are currently running up the southeast corner of the underground. Because
Southeast
historically,
corner.
what's that?
Which corner?
Which is
Southeast
southeast
corner.
over there? That's
No, southeast, east.
That's not,
Oh, southwest.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so-
sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
towards the
southwest.
street where they. I'm impressed you didn't know
East is
that.
Boston.
I didn't know that.
I'm sorry. Geography
You're
challenge.
from West Northfield?
That's right. A little geography challenge.
Me too.
now, I'm curious about that. You're burying them from where to where?
Well, it's gonna be, they're gonna have to put a pole on this side of the street. They were looking at trying to go,
Oh,
across.
so
the
bury
highway.
them to a pole, but still on this side, because you can't go under the road.
Well,
Yeah,
you
that's-
could, but the cost and the paperwork is just ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they said they're gonna put a pole on this side,
Oh,
probably on the far side of the entrance driveway,
yeah,
and then come
Okay.
across and put all those wires
so
on.
your wires outside the window are gonna be gone then?
Pretty much, all they're trying to do.
How
is-
pole
yeah.
instead?
The pole will be out in the.
Yes, yeah,
The
Can
pole will
I,
be out, further.
yeah, away from the
Behind the
building.
trees and stuff, I don't
It
know.
will not be on this side of the driveway. That's my
So then it's gotta go
understanding.
under the driveway?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
And apparently, Thomas said he would, allay the cost, he'd be doing some of the highway department would be doing
Yeah.
some of the trenching, et cetera, so
Okay,
that'll be going in there.
can I just add one thing? I know everybody here knows that, but just the way you phrased it, that you gave away money and you approved this.
Well,
These things aren't a done deal.
These are
You're-
warrant articles.
Your warrant articles that
They're
you're.
warrant
committed
articles
to.
that we
Which I
as a committee.
received.
Yeah.
I received them.
Yeah,
So those
okay.
will still be town meeting.
Town meeting vote.
Right.
So we're not usurping the legislative body.
That's right, we're not, thank you.
Just for the,
We
record.
recommend
Just so
it,
you know, you're
to
not-
the town.
Not this one.
Now, they had included on that something about the doing work on the fire alarm system inside the building, stuff like that, but that didn't qualify under the historical preservation part of it, so we
Yeah.
reduced the amount that they had asked for.
okay.
And then we recommended $25,000 for that. And we
Which-
also,
Is that what building here?
this building.
Yeah.
This building. And we also received a proposal from the Northfield, I guess it's BDO, who wanted some money for new playground equipment.
Oh, yeah.
She came out with replacing entirely, it's all brand new stuff. Well, obviously, well, if we that would have wiped us out if we did
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I said prioritize, and they said, well, the thing that's in worse shape is the older children's playground structure, which is in
Older children.
the older
Okay.
children.
Not the older structure.
Yeah, there's a younger children's playground structure, there's an older child.
Okay.
Different things. Well, anyway, cost of that stuff is crazy. And I think just that one piece of equipment on a couple of catalogs in the neighborhood of $35,000.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Why don't
It's
you just get
unbelievable.
them a car?
I'm an older child. I want to go play now.
Yeah.
Anyway, it has to be, has to apply, be under all of, current safety codes, the ADA,
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
And that one apparently is in the worst shape, and so they requested, I think, a total of $75,000, but we gave them, it's just one structure, $30,000.
Okay.
We recommended to the town that they give some money at the amount of $30,000.
Okay.
And so those are the three proposals that we got.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves us with some money still left not a lot, but there's some money still left in our accounts.
Yeah.
Another article that's out there is and Deb recommended this, is that we have not, for, I think since I've been here, we've gone on the assumption we're gonna be getting $30,000 from the state, and that has not.
Oh, matching.
That has not
Oh, they,
come to that for a couple of years, I think.
yeah.
So we've reduced what we'd asked. The percentages will stay the same, but we reduced it from 30,000 to 25,000. And
Okay.
10% for each of the three special things, 5% for administration.
As your estimate of what you're going to have to work with.
An estimate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have reduced that. And we also got a warrant article to increase the
Okay.
assessment from 0.5% to 1%.
Of course, if that passes, then you don't have to decrease your revenue.
And that's a longer process than I thought. I thought it was just okay, if town meeting passes that, that's it. But it's got to go to the next
Special town meeting or?
No.
election, town election.
So
Oh, yeah.
So this would go to
The next year.
the November state election
Oh.
as a
On a
ballot
ballot.
question.
Oh,
Yeah.
Once at a town meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to.
First
if the-
step
if
is
the
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
Oh, there's multiple steps. Town
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah,
then
multiple
town
steps.
meeting.
If the town meeting says yes, then it gets put on a ballot question on the next town election.
almost like an override kind of thing.
And
You have
wouldn't
to
that,
go-
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
the
what I
next
was
town
thinking, yeah.
election actually technically be the next day?
No, but it's gotta be
A certain amount.
35 days
Days after.
Yeah.
before. And
At
actually, if
least.
it's a state election, I was just talking to the people at Boston yesterday. If it's a state election, then it's gotta be 60 days, I think it's.
Yeah.
in,
Okay.
something to that effect.
So the first
But it's
step-
gotta go on as a ballot question.
Okay.
So you have to
Approve
get, so that has to go, your question actually has to go to the state because they print the ballots.
Yeah.
No, I guess so, but that's,
Yeah.
I said, what happens from there? He said, well, they told me that this is a process. It goes
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the town saying yes to the next town election, which presumably will be the November 2018 election.
Next town election or next election?
Well, I think it would be, if there was time between our town election and
But there isn't.
this,
The town
there
meeting-
isn't
Town meeting and town election, yes.
town election, so,
Yeah,
if we had
check
another
that
one
one.
in between that, I guess you could, if there was another election somewhere, it could go before that, but I anticipate the next election after
Be the-
Tuesday, that Tuesday will be the November.
Yeah, it's treated like an override pretty much, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
not aware of how that's treated, but anyway, so,
Okay.
and then, now, if it's turned down, we can still get it on the ballot, but it would have to be a citizen petition
yeah.
by getting, what is it, what percentage, 5% of
I think
the,
it's 2%.
2%, well, anyway, they said about 117.
That was how it was first enacted, and then there was a big backlash that brought it to town meeting to get it cut to 0.5%.
Well,
There was a lot of bad feeling about that petition, and that's why it's only 0.5% now.
Well, I know it went down from, the next year it was enacted 3%, the next year it was 0.5%. So that, it kind of flipped the vote, town meeting.
Oh, that would
approval.
reverse it. I see what you're saying.
And then when they went to the ballot question, it went the other way.
If it passed that way, then you'd bring it up at the next town meeting following. I think what you're saying is it starts out with a town meeting vote and then
Right.
it has to be at an election.
Right.
And if it doesn't pass at the election. I
Well,
don't
then
know.
you can bring it up as many times as you
Yeah, I
want.
guess.
So,
I guess.
but if I mean, these are warrant articles, and if they're
Yeah.
approved by the finance committee and the select board, then it goes to
Then it
town
goes to
meeting.
the
I mean, if there's
voters.
one,
Yeah.
if these
Yeah.
boards don't approve that, they
Yeah.
go to town meeting.
Well, we'll take it up when we get the articles
Yeah,
or something.
and,
Yeah, okay.
And like I said, and if that is the case, if it's not approved there, there's still the option of getting a citizen's petition.
Yeah,
And getting that into the town clerk before 60 days, I guess it is, before
yeah,
the
okay.
thing. So it's a two-step process.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
we're not going to celebrate if
Not just after
it
town
passes the
meeting,
town
no.
meeting, because,
No.
as you said, the next year it was cut drastically. So we hope to keep it on people's minds and go from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I've scheduled a meeting down. I guess Tracy goes to a breakfast meeting at the senior center, I think, just before the town meeting. I think it's
oh,
on maybe the 27th
Oh, to talk about-
of April,
yeah,
and talks about the warrant
Yes.
articles.
okay,
I'm going to be there at that and
okay.
talk about
Talk about this part.
that particular warrant article.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and we're looking for different places to do it. Of course,
Sure.
at the State of the Town on April 7th.
Yes, that'll be another time.
Another place. So we're
The more publicity, the better.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. I know it's probably not, and they even it's not the best time in the world to ask for an increase when the tax rate is going up
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much. But the way I look at it is
Well, you won't know unless you try.
right. The way I look at it, it's well, just again using my house as an example, I'm a little bit higher than the average tax, average household or assessment in the town. And it would cost me, if this goes through, at the old tax rate, it would cost me $22.
Yeah,
If the new tax rate, whatever that
Sure.
comes up, Beth could probably do that just like that.
Not right
but it-
now.
So,
okay.
we're talking maybe the average, maybe $30
Yeah,
a year. Not a lot
Okay.
of money, but I know people on fixed income, every bit counts, Will.
yeah,
Let's just be careful not to say that, just because we don't want to do inter-utilitarian comparison, because the value of our last dollars is different for each of us. And I don't want, I get a lot of calls from our senior citizens, many of which are, as you indicated, on that fixed income. And they won't come after you, but they'll call.
yeah.
No, and we'll be publicizing the process to how that's figured out.
Sure.
That's different, because the first $100,000 of
Yeah.
valuation is
Yes, yeah.
subtracted.
Yeah,
And then you go from there to get this figure. And there are ways for
they're exempt.
senior citizens, low income,
Yeah.
and veterans, if they meet certain guidelines, that they could be exempt from that, or is that?
If they qualify for the senior or the veterans with a service-connected disability, then it comes off.
Then it comes off,
Yeah.
completely comes off. Okay. So, I mean, we'll obviously talk about that also.
Sure.
Although, I've been told that our Yankee, what's the word I want?
Frugality,
Frugality.
or whatever.
Doesn't not frugality, but just, people don't wanna tell people what their income is and all their lives.
Oh, I see.
Kind of stuff.
I see. That you
You know,
give
I'm
out
sure that that's that's
information
part of the whole thing, isn't it? But
to qualify for the exemptions, you
to
mean?
qualify the
Yeah,
exemption, they
I
have to
get
fill
it.
out,
Yeah, they have to produce that.
they have to produce
Yeah,
that, so
yeah,
it
they're
would
too
have to
private.
come out to their relief,
Yeah.
stealing some of their financial data,
Sure.
and they may not wanna do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Okay.
so we'll give it a try. We, not the best time in the world, but we'll give it a try. And,
Sure.
And it's, like I said, if it passes town meeting, and hope it does, but, hope it gets to town meeting first of all.
Yeah,
And then if
yeah.
it passes town meeting, we won't be celebrating just yet.
Yeah.
So, we'll, the
Wait.
gotta go.
Runs the
And
process.
that won't take effect until the 2020.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's the way it works.
Okay,
I got that from the powers that be in Boston. So.
yeah, so it's accurate.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
Yeah, but,
Just a couple of things on, the last meeting we talked about, you mentioned about a plaque over here on this
yeah,
building.
right.
And I was talking to Skip yesterday and he said, yes, it's a plaque they're talking about putting there. And I mentioned to you about the fact that some of you, I think, were shocked. But yes, there were 2 fire trucks housed in there at one time, which were much smaller, and they were side by side. And I mentioned this Buffalo fire truck, which is the make of the vehicle, and that was sold many, many years ago. The firemen found it, bought it with their own money that they made from pancake breakfasts and their turkey shoots and stuff, had it restored, and it is up here. And so we do have that vehicle.
No, it is not, from what Steve Sandusky said, that vehicle is not the original one that was there, but it's one in the 1930s, I guess it was 1936 or something like that, is when that Buffalo was.
Okay, I don't know what was there, what
No,
they had
he was
before that.
a goldmine of information there. He was rattling off this stuff, and I said, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I don't know, there was one truck, and I don't know if it was fixed afterward or beyond repair, that when they were, of course the road has changed a lot up there, but up where Route 10 and 63 separate,
Yeah.
they were headed to Hinsdale to help in a fire and turned and rolled over, and one man was killed.
Did the horses get hurt?
Did the what? Horses? No, the buffalo either.
I think
I
that
don't
was
know.
motorized.
I would make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
All in favor? All in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor?